Chapter 1008. Li Qingshan, I admit you're much stronger than regular trash, so I'd advise you not to make a mistake. Don't ruin your great future for mere worldly possessions. Even when Si Qing stood before Li Qingshan, he still looked down on him and ordered him around. My future can't be ruined just because someone wants to, even if it's some prince or crown prince. Li Qingshan fiddled around with the Azura field, completely ignoring Si Qing's threat. Unraging master, the Azura field doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to the imperial family too, so it must be taken back. Does the Chan monastery of Devanaga really want to become enemies with Great Xia over this kid? Si Qing held back his urge to kill Li Qingshan and said to the unraging monk, "You're only a crown prince. You still can't represent Great Xia. The Azura field is soaked in the blood of the cultivators of our green province. I don't think it'll be that easy if you want to take it back so easily." The unraging monk retorted firmly. "At the end of the day, you just want some benefits. All right, state your conditions." Si Qing said in disdain. He had noticed the dense, blood-red light in the Azura field. Clearly, it was much more powerful than when he had just refined it, so he did not mind paying a little price. He would naturally get his revenge in the future. There are no conditions at all. You can't take the Azura field away. Li Qingshan rejected him flatly. Li Qingshan, why don't you take a look at your identity first? Is there any place for you to speak here? Si Qing was angered. Having been provoked by a White Hawk commander time and time again, his patience had reached the limit too. I can tell you're not willing to just let the matter go. Why don't we have another bet? The Azura field will belong to whoever wins. Li Qingshan said. What bet? Si Qing asked. Don't you like duels? Then let's have another one. You want your master to fight me? What a good disciple. Si Qing sneered. Yu Weiyang frowned heavily. He felt great contempt towards Li Qingshan. Was he acting willfully just because he was using his connections to intimidate others? However, the unraging monk did not think so. He was well aware of Li Qingshan's temperament. He was so independent that he was proud and aloof. Even if Li Qingshan was under his protection, Li Qingshan would not accept it, let alone fight on his behalf. No, I want to duel with you. Li Qingshan's eyes shone brightly. He looked straight at Si Qing. As soon as he said that, everyone except Gu Yenying was stunned, wondering if they had heard wrongly. Not only was Si Qing at the third stage of the heavenly tribulation, he had also cultivated the Black Emperor Dragon scripture, one of the 3 graves and 5 scriptures of the royal family. His strength far surpassed that of ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Qingshan, don't be rash. The unraging monk smiled bitterly inside. Now this is Li Qingshan's temperament. Oh, my damned disciple. You might as well have let your master take action. Yu Weiyang's expression changed from disdain to surprise. In the end, he had to admit that he really couldn't see through Li Qingshan. I know what I'm doing. I'm known as the King of Savages in the southern border. Li Qingshan said with a smile. King of Savages, could it be that he... No, this is impossible. Si Qing's mind raced, and he immediately rejected this inconceivable thought. As a prince, he had the best talent, the best resources, and the strongest cultivation technique, but he had still spent over 300 years to reach this level. It took more than 100 years to go from the second heavenly tribulation to the third. Given Li Qingshan's background, it was already a miracle that he could become the White Eagle commander at such a young age. He had only undergone the second heavenly tribulation in 20 to 30 years, so it was impossible for him to undergo the third heavenly tribulation. The so-called King of Savages is definitely just an empty title. What King of Savages? Savages are more like savages. Aren't you afraid of being mocked in such a desolate place? It was not Si Qing's fault for thinking like that. Aside from Gu Yenying, everyone present was the same. No one would guess that Li Qingshan had already gone through 3 heavenly tribulations. This had nothing to do with wisdom, but common sense. What, are you scared? Your Highness. This bastard still dares to bluff. That was what Si Qing believed. He felt humiliated by his hesitation just now, so he said proudly, dueling you is an insult to me, but for the sake of the Chan monastery of Devanaga, I'll give you this opportunity. Li Qingshan smiled inside. You've finally taken the bait, or in other words, he crooked his finger, and the fish leapt ashore. Since you want my Azura field, you should offer something of equal value as a wager. Otherwise, the duel won't take place. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I also have a condition. Cold light flashed through Si Qing's eyes. What condition? Li Qingshan asked. I want to engage in a battle to the death with you. No one is allowed to interfere before life and death is determined. Si Qing's killing intent surged. He no longer hid it. A Qing, that's not very appropriate. Gu Yenying tried to persuade him. Yenying, this has nothing to do with you. Si Qing said straightforwardly. He was certain that Gu Yenying was siding with Li Qingshan. Gu Yenying shook her head. What was the point? Li Qingshan lowered his head and feigned hesitation to hide the joy in his heart. To think that there would be something so good. Originally, he had considered Si Qing's identity, and killing him would definitely lead to endless trouble. His plans in the Green Province would all be disrupted, so he had been considering whether to kill him or not. He never thought he would actually propose such a delightful condition. What, are you afraid now? Si Qing became more and more certain that Li Qingshan was just putting on an act just now. I still vaguely remember that a duel can only be fought with your own strength? Li Qingshan asked in a probing manner, as if he wanted to shrink back. He had already made up his mind to kill. He thought, as the crown prince, this bastard must have quite a lot of life-saving items on him. If it's a regular battle, I really might not be able to kill him. That's right. No external items are allowed in the duel. The Sumeru ring will be handed to the arbitrator for safekeeping, and the victor will obtain everything. How about it? This wager is much greater than the Azura field. Si Qing was afraid that Li Qingshan would go back on his word, so he added another bait. Alright. Li Qingshan seemed to have made up his mind. He thought, Si Qing, oh Si Qing, you can't blame me if you want to die. When Li Qingshan agreed, Si Qing suddenly felt uneasy, as if he had made a wrong judgment. However, he immediately suppressed this uneasiness. There was no reason for him to lose. Great General King, please lend me your Azura field. Please hand over your Sumeru rings and all your belongings. Yu Weiyang took out an Azura field with a flip of his hand. The decorations were indeed different from Li Qingshan's Azura field, and it was even denser. Yenying, you'll be our arbitrator, Si Qing said to Gu Yenying. Both parties have to agree. Yu Weiyang lowered his eyes. As the owner of the Azura field, he would usually be the arbitrator. Si Qing clearly did not trust him. Gu Yenying nodded slightly and said to Li Qingshan, May I? The two Sumeru rings landed in Gu Yenying's hand. She clenched her fists. Although it's a battle to the death, I'd advise the two of you to be lenient wherever possible. Si Qing thought Gu Yenying was talking to him. He sneered slightly, but he did not comment. I've always been one to be lenient wherever possible. Li Qingshan smiled. He would never be lenient wherever possible. With that, he stepped into the Azura field first. The familiar blood-red swirl permeated with a heavy stench of blood. Everything was enveloped in a layer of red light. The terrain was relatively simple, with undulating mountain ranges and lone peaks standing tall. Surrounded by the mountains, there was a large open space. Li Qingshan and Si Qing appeared in the empty space, facing off against each other. Soon afterwards, the unraging monk and the others appeared on the tallest mountain, overlooking the battlefield below. Yuang, who are they? With a flash of red light, a man with disheveled hair appeared on the mountain, directly calling Yu Weiyang by name. The presence he gave off was that of an Azura king. A living one and a dead one, Yu Weiyang said. A battle to the death. Interesting. The Azura king said. Who do you think will win? Yu Weiyang asked. There's actually a battle you can't predict? The Azura king was rather surprised. He glanced down. If I were to bet, I'd bet on the kid on the right. Yu Weiyang was slightly surprised. The one on the right was Li Qingshan. He said sternly, he hasn't undergone the third heavenly tribulation yet. What? Did I make a mistake? The Azura king knew nothing about Li Qingshan. He made a judgment based on his instincts as a warrior. He stared at Li Qingshan deeply. His presence is completely concealed, so how do you know he hasn't undergone the third heavenly tribulation? Why do I feel like he's much more difficult to deal with than the kid on the left? Maybe you made a mistake. Yu Weiyang wanted to deny it. However, he struggled to question the Azura King's instincts regarding this battle. Did I really make a mistake? Li Qingshan, feel free to use whatever you've got. I'd like to see where you get the confidence to challenge me. I heard you practice the secret cultivation method of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga, the demon suppression statuary. Let me see what's so impressive about it. As you wish. Li Qingshan released his suppression over the demon heart. Immediately, demon chi surged into the air, surging out in all directions like the tide. Although he still lacked the time to polish the quality, from the perspective of quantity, the effects were quite startling. Si Qing was stunned. He was in disbelief. Demon King. Yu Weiyang's eyes narrowed. Within the surging demon chi, Li Qingshan's dark red eyes were like cold stars. Strange demonic tattoos appeared on his body. He suddenly understood. To be able to calmly kill the flying locust demon commander in the midst of a locust plague, it was not something that a Jindan adept could do. He definitely did not rely on a mere Shura field. However, how could this be possible? How old was he? The unraging monk was taken aback before bursting into laughter. This disciple of his always surprised him. The third heavenly tribulation. He's already undergone the third heavenly tribulation. Yu Bing murmured. He recalled how he had even said he wanted to compete with Li Qingshan back in the Chain Mountains. Now that he thought about it, it was such a joke. Li Qingshan, oh Li Qingshan. Looks like I've still underestimated you. Han Anjuan glanced at Han Qiongji again. Seeing how relieved she was, he could not help but sigh inside. Do you really think you can defeat me like this? Si Qing recovered from his shock. He roared and turned into a black dragon, lunging towards Li Qingshan. All right, there's no point in guessing anymore. The outcome has already been determined, said the Azura King. The difference in strength between them isn't that great, said Yu Weiyang. As a matter of fact, Si Qing was slightly stronger. You still don't understand? I think you've been a great general for too long. You've even forgotten the most basic things. Don't beasts always do their best to conceal themselves when they hunt? The kid on the right could have just continued to conceal his strength and launched a sudden attack at a critical moment. Yu Weiyang was speechless. Was he no longer concealing himself because he had already achieved his objective? He was absolutely confident that he could kill Si Qing here. Chapter 1009. The blood-red swirl began to spin. The black dragon's roar rang through the entire Azura field as it lunged towards Li Qingshan, brandishing its claws and fangs. Apart from Yu Weiyang, the unraging monk, and the Azura King, everyone else only saw a slithering streak of black light rush towards Li Qingshan. Heh! Li Qingshan let out a gentle laugh. Demon chi erupted like smoke, immediately swallowing his figure. Bang! The black dragon collided headfirst into the pillar of smoke. Within the surging demon chi, a huge, metallic hand reached out and pressed down on the dragon's head. The black dragon struggled, but it was unable to take another step forward. It roared inside, "This is impossible. I've practiced the Black Emperor Dragon's cannon arduously. After transforming into a black dragon, my body has even surpassed Demon King's in toughness. How can I be stopped like this?" A colossal figure flickered in and out of the demon chi. Suddenly, it sucked in a deep breath, and the demon chi surged back. Only then did an armored giant over 300 meters tall appear, like a mountain. Its eyes flickered with dark, demonic light. Suddenly, it lit up, and the hand that pressed down on the black dragon suddenly tightened and pulled backwards. The black dragon's body that was close to 600 meters in length was pushed forwards against its will. Another huge hand grabbed the dragon firmly, and it was suddenly swung around, slamming into the ground heavily. Boom! Rocks were sent flying and the ground cracked. The black dragon widened its eyes as its entire body ached. The two huge hands pulled hard, and its colossal body was thrown into the air again. Boom! Like a child swinging a dead snake, Li Qingshan grabbed the black dragon and swung it back and forth. Laughter rang out from the heavy armor. The spectators were all dumbfounded. This no longer seemed like a tense battle to the death. It was clearly a one-sided game. I've misjudged him too. How can his strength be so great? The Azura King sighed in amazement. The Black Dragon's body even surpassed his. Even Azura Kings who pursued strength could not stop his full-powered lunge with a single hand. Strength was not the only standard for assessing battle prowess. However, once the difference in strength had reached such a level, and it was also close combat, the outcome of the battle was basically set in stone. Yu Weiyang pursed his lips. I really want to fight him. The demon suppression statuary really is the secret technique of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga after all. It's actually even better than the Black Emperor Dragon's cannon. Yu Weiyang felt that he had to re-evaluate this monk. If the disciple had such strength, wouldn't the master be even stronger? The unraging monk stared at the battlefield attentively. He was taken aback before smiling. You're too kind, fellow. This child probably came across some fortuitous encounter in the Mist Province. His brows were slightly furrowed because Li Qingshan's performance was really not normal. Although the demon suppression statuary condensed a demon heart, it was fundamentally different from demon folk. However, right now, Li Qingshan seemed no different from a demon king. His completely uncontrollable ruthlessness was even more powerful and terrifying than regular demon kings. The demon suppression statuary was in his hands. His appearance had completely changed. Could it be that he's possessed by the devil? The unraging monk dismissed this thought soon afterwards. Li Qingshan behaved extremely normally. He did not seem like he had lost control of his emotions or changed drastically at all. Moreover, chi deviation was a terrifying, negative state. He had never heard of anyone becoming even stronger after chi deviation. Just what did he encounter in the Mist Province? Azure. The Black Dragon was tossed into the air once again. It let out a furious roar. It had never been so humiliated before. It opened its mouth and spat out surging black water. Like a black river, it directly rushed towards Li Qingshan's face. What are you doing? Li Qingshan asked with a smile. With a rip, a thick layer of his visor was eaten away, but there was still a thick layer of armor behind it. His demonified form was basically completely composed of armor. It did not have any other advantages other than its freakishly tough defense. The Black Dragon struggled hard, and Li Qingshan's hand slipped. He smiled viciously, purposefully not using his full strength. With the violent sound of metal grinding against each other, countless scales flew into the air and fell off. The agony almost drove the Black Dragon mad. It slithered around Li Qingshan's body. For dragon claws gripped his vital points firmly, and its mouth bit down viciously on Li Qingshan's neck. The claws and teeth stabbed deeply, and there was the sound of metal twisting. The demonic armor deformed violently. The Black Dragon's strangulation. The demon chi around Li Qingshan vanished, and the light in his demon heart dimmed. A thin, black line wrapped around it, which happened to be a miniature Black Dragon. It had locked down his demon heart firmly, preventing him from using his cultivation. This was not just a strangulation of the body. It was also a direct suppression of the source of his powers. I want you dead, the Black Dragon growled, surging with killing intent. This kid is far too careless, or in other words, he has no battle intent at all. Now that he's struck by this move, victory will be difficult to say. The Azura King shook his head, but to his confusion, he still could not sense much battle intent even now. I didn't think the demon suppression statuary I practice would end up being suppressed by someone today. But it's a pity that you're still too weak. Someone I once viewed as a great enemy, even if your cultivation speed is not slow, has already become so weak. Let alone powerful demon kings like the Martial Chief King and the kings of Yin and Yang, even that bone-eating shaman king who turned into a monk halfway through is stronger than you. A battle like this is far too tedious. Li Qingshan thought. He did not feel his blood boil at all. Although it was said that even a lion would use its full strength to hunt a rabbit, that was because if it did not use its full strength, the rabbit would run away. A rabbit that crawled on a lion and bit furiously would only embarrass the lion. However, in the eyes of outsiders, Li Qingshan had indeed fallen into a terrifying, hopeless situation. The huge demonic armor constantly twisted and shrank, constantly being eaten away by the black water. The claws and teeth constantly sank in. No matter how thick the demonic armor was, it would not be able to protect him very soon. "Si Qing, I'm going to blow up my demon heart and take you down with me," Li Qingshan called out. Si Qing's heart tightened. This move of his was a powerful killing move, but it possessed a fatal flaw. He could seal up the enemy's cultivation, but he could not prevent the enemy from blowing up themselves. Once the enemy decided to blow themselves up, it was very easy for him to be dragged down with him in this state. He was not afraid of death, but this kind of death was far too aggrieving. "I never thought that a dignified crown prince like you would actually die together with someone like me. Why don't you admit defeat and I'll let you live?" Li Qingshan said with a smile. "Don't even think about it." Si Qing was enraged. He had clearly been forced into a hopeless situation, yet he still dared to threaten him. "Then I'll take you down with me," Li Qingshan said. "Come." Si Qing roared, using all his strength to strangle Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan fell silent for a moment. Si Qing's heart was in his throat, and he was prepared to dodge and flee at any moment. "I'm just joking. Take me down with you? Dream on." Li Qingshan laughed. However, the joke ended here. He made two decisions. First, he would no longer use the absolute strength of the ox demon transformation to crush his opponent. He would also not use any of the other transformations. He would only use the demon suppression statuary to fight his opponent. He would use this opportunity to temper this brand new power, and also to avoid arousing too much suspicion from the spectators. Chapter 10:10. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and allowed his mind to return to the demonic heart. The aura has changed. The Azura king, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up and looked at the battlefield with bright eyes. His lips curled into a sinister smile. "Finally, it's getting interesting. I, Si Qing, am a member of the royal family of the Xia dynasty, the son of destiny. You're just a lowly commoner who got to where you are today because of luck. How dare you compete with me? Today is the day you die." The black dragon roared and tightened its body, turning the armor into scrap metal. "I don't remember you being this stupid before. Did you get struck by lightning during the tribulation?" Li Qingshan suddenly opened his eyes. His killing intent surged and his evil aura soared into the sky. The blood-red vortex spun faster and the demonic heart shone with demonic light, attacking the entangling black dragon. The power of the demonic heart mostly came from the demonic nature. In this almost playful state, he didn't unleash his true strength. "What a brave and fierce battle intent," Yu Yang praised. As a warrior, he obviously admired true warriors. He felt like he was seeing Li Qingshan in a new light. He turned around and asked Han Anjuan, "Why didn't you accept him as a disciple of the school of the military in the first place?" Han Anjuan couldn't answer. Everything was just a coincidence. "But it's not a waste to have such a son-in-law," Yu Yang said. Han Anjuan smiled bitterly. He didn't want to have such a son-in-law, but it was his daughter who insisted on doing things her own way. With Li Qingshan's seriousness, Si Qing immediately felt that his killing intent was shaken. He was shocked and angry. "This is impossible. This is the killing intent of the Black Emperor Dragon scripture. Even if my strength is not as good, I can still win against someone stronger. How did I break free? There's no why. It's just that you're weaker. Whether it's your strength or your will, going through 3 heavenly tribulations and becoming the crown prince of the Xia dynasty is just an illusion. You're even weaker than when I first met you." Si Qing. Li Qingshan seemed to have heard Si Qing's thoughts and said with a smile, "Shut up. At least at that time, you still knew fear and you still knew how to plan. Now that you've become some bullshit crown prince, do you really think that you're already standing at the top of the food chain? Do you think that you can look down on everyone and do whatever you want?" Li Qingshan's words were sharp. The murderous aura intensified. In a daze, Si Qing had an illusion that it was not him who had forced Li Qingshan into a desperate situation, but Li Qingshan who had seized his vital point. It had been less than a year since he became the crown prince, but the sudden change in his status gave him unprecedented confidence. When he heard that the Azura field had appeared in Azure Province, he was extremely excited. He had immediately rushed over, as if he was taking something out of his pocket. However, the development of everything had greatly exceeded his initial expectations. What exactly had gone wrong? For the world of the 9 prefectures, overcoming the 3rd heavenly tribulation could be considered as reaching the peak of the mountain, and they could heave a sigh of relief. He enjoyed the pleasure of looking down on all the other mountains. He himself had cultivated a top-notch cultivation technique and possessed an extremely high position of power. He even had the opportunity to aspire to the throne of the great Xia dynasty. However, when he looked back, the small fry that he had once disdained had already caught up with his footsteps. In fact, he was even faster than him. If all my enemies are people like you, then revenge would be too boring. Regretless demon heart. Li Qingshan bellowed, and the demon heart shone brightly, instantly breaking through the shackles. Demonic chi surged out. Break! Dozens of demon suppression towers of various sizes pierced out from various parts of the demonic armor like sharp spearheads. With a pained dragon roar, the black dragon's blood splattered, and its killing momentum slowed down. However, it still refused to let go of its claws. He thought to himself, as long as I hold on a little longer and tear apart this damned armor, I'll be able to kill him. Open! Li Qingshan's body shook, and demonic chi burst out, sending the black dragon flying. Li Qingshan raised his hand, and the demon suppression chains shot out, wrapping around the black dragon's tail. The demon suppression chains stretched taut, and the black dragon flew forward, frantically trying to break free. He finally felt the fear that he had not felt in a long time. Suppress! Li Qingshan bellowed, and a large black shadow descended from the sky. A mountainous demon suppression tower descended from the sky, pressing down on the black dragon. The black dragon turned around and bit off the demon suppression chains. Its body suddenly shrank, and it dodged the suppression of the demon suppression tower, fleeing towards the mountains outside the battlefield. This scene exceeded everyone's expectations. Si Qing had actually been forced to flee. The Black Emperor Dragon mantra was powerful, but compared to the demon suppression statuary, it did not have much of an advantage. And even if Li Qingshan did not use the 9 transformations of demons and gods, with his powerful demonic nature as his foundation, his battle prowess was above that of the average demon king. Fellow Taoist you, what should I say? Li Qingshan was not in a hurry to give chase. Or rather, if he did not use his mystical abilities, he would not be able to catch up. The battle is not over yet. I have already sealed the Azura field. There is only one person who can walk out of it, Yu Weiyang said solemnly. Although he did not want a crown prince to die in his Azura field, a duel had its rules. If one had the determination to kill, they should also be prepared to be killed. What if he keeps running away? Li Qingshan said. Every 2 hours I will reduce the area where you can move. This is also one of the rules of the duel, Yu Weiyang said. This is retribution. I'm not happy. Li Qingshan laughed loudly. He remembered that many years ago, Si Qing had used this very rule to force many cultivators into a desperate situation. In that case, I will wait for him here for a while. He dispersed the demonic heavy armor, sat down cross-legged, and looked at his demon heart. After a small battle that was not too intense, although he had used up a lot of demon heart, he had gotten rid of a lot of impurities. Remorseless demon heart. Damn disciple, how did you practice the demon suppression statuary? The unraging monk asked loudly. I obviously comprehended it from the demon suppression statue. Is there something wrong with that? Li Qingshan purposefully acted like he knew nothing. It's not just wrong. It was basically wrong from the very beginning. It was a huge mistake. What's the difference between you and demon folk like this? The unraging monk said in bitter resentment. There's a difference. Not only did I not do anything bad, but I even fended off the plague of locusts and saved over 1 million people. What difference do you think there is? Master, you're far too narrow-minded. Perhaps my way of practicing might be correct and you're wrong. The unraging monk hesitated slightly too. Did a path like that really exist in the demon suppression statuary? Then he asked, When did you undergo the third heavenly tribulation? It wasn't that long, said Li Qingshan. So much for keeping it to yourself. I think you're clearly guilty. I have a very clear conscience, so what's there to be guilty about? Li Qingshan called out at the sky. Si Qing, stop wasting time. Come out and accept your death. His voice boomed through the mountains. In a mountain stream, the black dragon had shrunk to the thickness of a pinky, like a tiny snake hiding in a crack in a rock. He concealed all of his aura and hid himself. Chapter 10-11. Time passed bit by bit. Li Qingshan simply focused on his cultivation and continued to refine his demonic heart, while Yu Weiyang kept shrinking the scope of the entire battlefield. After an unknown period of time, a wisp of dark clouds rose from the stream and spread across the mountains. Thunder rumbled in the clouds, and the silhouette of a dragon could be vaguely seen. Finally, a smile appeared on Li Qingshan's face as he said loudly, "Don't dawdle. Come and finish this." In the blink of an eye, the dark clouds covered the sky and shrouded Li Qingshan's head. Black rain poured down, stirring up the protective demonic energy around him and causing white mist to rise. At this moment, another 2 hours passed. Yu Weiyang further reduced the scope of the battlefield. The only area that the two could move around was this large open space surrounded by mountains and some surrounding mountains, all of which were shrouded by the dark clouds. Li Qingshan, it's time for you to die. The dragon's silhouette swam, and Si Qing's voice came from the dark clouds, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder, as if it was an order from the heavens. This move was called Dark Cloud's Cover, and it was originally a move used in the Black Emperor Dragon mantra to attack cities and break mountains. It was extremely destructive, but it was not suitable to be used in fights of magical powers. Otherwise, the enemy would be able to escape from the dark clouds in a flash. However, Si Qing had timed it perfectly and calculated the terrain, making it impossible for Li Qingshan to escape. Li Qingshan could only face it head-on. You prepared for so long just to bathe me? Li Qingshan stood in the battlefield and let out a long roar, breaking the curtain of rain and tearing the clouds apart. He caught a glimpse of the black dragon's tail, and the chains of demon suppression whizzed through the air. The black dragon swung its tail, avoiding the entanglement of the chains of demon suppression, and hid in the dark clouds again. The dragon's mouth kept breathing out mist, making the dark clouds thicker and thicker. Low above the battlefield, the heavy rain poured down, and soon, the black water had covered Li Qingshan's feet. As if it had a life of its own, the black water surged towards him. Li Qingshan's body trembled. The black water surged into thousands of water droplets, flying in all directions. Demon eyes. The billowing demonic aura transformed into a giant battle armor that was 100 feet tall. The sharp horns on its head could almost touch the clouds. However, compared to the clumsy and heavy just now, it seemed to be slimmer. A demonic eye formed between the demonic armor's brows. A streak of demonic light shot into the clouds, searching for the black dragon. Suddenly, he saw the shadow of a dragon flash by, and he punched it. A large hole was torn open in the dark clouds, but the black dragon was nowhere to be seen. Si Qing remained hidden until the dark clouds had accumulated to the limit. The dark thunder rumbling in the clouds could no longer be suppressed. Suddenly, a dragon roar sounded. Die! With a flash of light, a bolt of lightning shot out, carrying with it the flames of vengeance. It bombarded Li Qingshan's head, and lightning flickered, turning into a net of electricity that weaved around his body. It disappeared in a flash. Li Qingshan's body turned numb. Dazzling lightning flashed before his eyes, and booms rang out in his ears. A series of lightning bolts struck down. The unraging monk frowned slightly. The 3 graves and 5 classics of the imperial family truly were extraordinary. It could even blast through protective formations with such power, and lightning was rather effective against demon chi. If he were a regular demon king, he would have died from being struck by lightning. Han Qiongji's eyes were filled with worry. However, she did her best to maintain her composure. Yu Bing stared straight at them, unable to take his eyes off of them. Yu Weiyang, on the other hand, sighed. The new had replaced the old. After all, they had both undergone the 3rd heavenly tribulation recently, But if they fought, he actually did not have absolute confidence in emerging victorious even though he was a great general. He used the opportunity to scold his son, Yu Bing. Are you still going to treat yourself as a genius and treat your cultivation lightly in the future? I won't, Yu Bing said obediently. He thought, since when have I treated my cultivation lightly? Am I not a genius with my current cultivation at such a young age? The two of them are just too monstrous, especially that Li Qingshan. I heard from Qiongji that he's only a few decades old. Is he the reincarnation of a celestial? The demon suppression tower on Li Qingshan's helmet pointed diagonally at the sky, basically becoming a lightning rod. The scorching lightning tore through the demonic armor, and the black water beneath his feet constantly surged up, eroding the demonic armor madly. Dragon cries rang out, filled with the delight of revenge. Si Qing powered the white lightning and black water, wanting to reduce Li Qingshan to smithereens. Only then would his hatred be appeased. Li Qingshan did not move at all, as if he had completely lost the ability to resist. He allowed the lightning to strike him as his lips curled into a smile. The reason why his demonic form was so stable was because he had not experienced the tempering of tribulation lightning, and the demonic power he had devoured from the various demon kings was not completely compatible. He had originally needed a lot of time to temper himself, but he did not expect Si Qing to take the initiative to help him, making up for this lesson. What else was there to say? He just had to stand there and take the lightning strikes. As for whether he would be struck to death, that was no joke. Even if he did not use the 9 transformations of the demon and god, his powerful physique was still here. Even if he took off his demonic armor, being struck by Si Qing for 100 years was nothing. Li Qingshan silently circulated the demon suppression statuary, and the mottled impurities in his demonic heart slowly faded under the tempering of the lightning. The demonic nature surged, but it was no longer the fighting spirit of the tiger demon, but the persistence of the ox demon, silently enduring the lightning strikes. His enormous body continued to shrink, and soon he was less than 50 zhang in size. The black water quickly drowned him, forming a large black lake that submerged Li Qingshan's waist. The waves surged and slapped his body, but he was like a black reef, standing there without moving. A moment later, the black water had submerged his chest. Qingzhen, hold on a little longer. The unraging monk thought. The lightning strikes had already begun to weaken. Without pills and spiritual stones, even Si Qing could not maintain an attack of this intensity for too long. Hold on a little longer. Si Qing gritted his teeth and gave it his all. Victory was right before his eyes. Li Qingshan had already reached his limit. He only needed to hold on for a little longer, and he would succeed. He would wash away his humiliation and reclaim the Azura field that belonged to him. However, Li Qingshan was thinking the same thing. Si Qing, hold on a little longer. The effects of the lightning refinement were quite impressive. This short period of time had saved him half a year at the very least. Li Qingshan's figure became smaller and smaller. A while later, a huge wave slammed down, completely swallowing Li Qingshan's figure. The rumbling thunder settled down, and the dark clouds began to disperse. The black dragon circled around the surface of the water a few times as he wondered, is he dead? Qingshan. Han Qiongji took a step forward, her face filled with concern. The Azura king glanced at her. What are you in such a hurry for, little girl? Your man has won. He's even stronger than I expected. He's won? Han Qiongji asked. Voila! A chain of demon suppression burst out of the water, wrapping around the black dragon's neck and pulling it down violently. The black dragon fell heavily into the water, and the lake churned violently. The dragon's tail would slap the surface of the water from time to time, kicking up huge waves. However, the dragon's head remained at the bottom the entire time. With a boom, the black dragon burst out of the water. As the water splashed into the air, Li Qingshan stood high above the dragon's head. His figure had returned to normal, and his demonic armor had fallen off. Layers of demonic glyphs crisscrossed his robust body. He gripped the chain of demon suppression in his hand like a rein, controlling the violent black dragon beneath him. Chapter 10-12. The black dragon let out a violent roar, shaking its head and wagging its tail. It wanted to shake off the chains of dispute and throw Li Qingshan off its head. The black dragon would sometimes dive into the lake and kick up a great wave. At other times, it would charge into the clouds and scatter the remnants of the clouds even more. However, Li Qingshan seemed to be nailed to his head, standing firmly on it. With a casual tug on the chain, the dragon's head was pulled to the side, and the pitch-black chain dug deeply into its flesh. Si Qing was utterly furious. Compared to the physical pain, he found the humiliation and despair even more unbearable. Suddenly, he bolted forward and slammed into the mountain. Boom! Dust surged, and the mountain trembled as if it was about to collapse. However, when the black dragon flew out of the dust, Li Qingshan remained standing on the dragon's head. As a matter of fact, his upright posture had not even changed at all. Boom! 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 The black dragon circled around the mountains, smashing through over a dozen mountains in a row. The mountains collapsed and the earth collapsed, falling into the deep, black water and kicking up great waves. However, a few more chains wrapped around the black dragon. Even twisting its body became extremely difficult, and the chains constantly tightened, radiating with a powerful demon-suppressing power. In order to control the lightning, the black dragon had already exhausted all of its mental and physical strength. After a moment of frenzy, it finally showed signs of exhaustion. Under the pressure of the chains, its body rapidly shrank until it reverted to human form. It fell onto the top of a mountain, right next to the highest peak where the unraging monk and the others watched the battle. Si Qing's hair was disheveled, and his dragon robes were in tatters. Blood oozed from the corner of his lips. He was in an extremely horrible shape, but he continued to stare at Li Qingshan with hatred and reluctance, like a wolf staring at the hunter outside the trap. At least that's more like it. Li Qingshan crouched down and stared at Si Qing. Demonic glyphs appeared all over his body, and demon chi rose up. He was more like a villain. Just who are you? Si Qing still struggled to believe everything that had happened. Me? I'm an obedient citizen of Great Xia, a loyal subject of your highness, the crown prince. Li Qingshan grabbed Si Qing's head and crushed it forcefully with his fingers. The sound of his skull shattering was accompanied by Si Qing's furious roar. If I don't get my revenge, I'll never forgive you. I swear I'm not human. The figure of a black dragon flashed, as if it had leapt into another space. It directly passed through the seal of the Azura field and flew towards the distant dragon province. Li Qingshan was surprised. He didn't expect his nascent soul to escape in such an unusual way. It must be a unique life-saving method of the crown prince of the Great Xia dynasty. He clenched his fists in an instant. Just as he was about to unleash the shockwave, he thought for a moment and loosened his grip. If he exposed himself right now, he would have to take down the Demon Suppression Hall if he wanted to learn the 9th layer of the Demon Suppression Statuary. He still did not want to become enemies with the Chan Monastery of Devanaga, especially his master, the unraging monk. Si Qing's body had been destroyed by him. His cultivation would definitely be greatly damaged, and it was unknown how long it would take for him to recover. At that time, he could naturally crush him at will, and there was no need to rush. Li Qingshan wins. Yu Yang announced loudly. Li Qingshan picked up Si Qing's corpse and leaped to the highest peak. After being tempered by the lightning, there was no need for him to use the spirit turtle's method of Si suppression to suppress his demon heart anymore. He withdrew his demon chi and diluted the demonic patterns, but he still seemed rather mysterious. With a flash, the blood shadow blocked Li Qingshan's path. Surging murderousness surged towards Li Qingshan. You're called Li Qingshan, right? Are you bold enough to fight me? Not interested. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed slightly, and he constantly advanced forward. The Azura King's murderousness changed rapidly. It was as if it could attack at any time. To an Azura, there was no such thing as holding back. It would definitely be a fatal strike the moment it struck. However, Li Qingshan did not respond at all, as if he could not tell how dangerous it was. No matter how you change, I'll remain unfazed, brushing past the Azura King. A sliver of surprise flashed through the Azura King's eyes, but it did not take action in the end. Li Qingshan arrived before Gu Yenying and extended his hand. The spoils. Gu Yenying placed the 2 sumaru rings in Li Qingshan's hand. They looked into each other's eyes, as if they had something to say to each other. Han Qiongji went up and hugged Li Qingshan. She said excitedly, "Fantastic! You've won." "It's a pity that bastard escaped," Li Qingshan said with some pity. The unraging monk said, "That's not necessarily a bad thing. Including Si Qing, there are only 3 great Xia crown princes. Their statuses can't be compared to regular great cultivators. Even if they die in battle, the imperial family of Great Xia might not just let the matter go." Li Qingshan smiled. "In other words, it's still a win-win situation. I obtained the spoils, and he managed to escape with his life." "What kind of win-win situation is that?" "He came to the Green Province in high spirits to collect his debt, yet not only did he end up giving up his sumaru rings, but he was even almost beaten to death here." Yu Bing grumbled to himself. "I still think there's something wrong with your demon suppression statuary." The unraging monk still did not understand. From how Li Qingshan behaved, he did not seem like he had fallen into the demonic path. "Let's talk about these small matters in the future. Master, it's about time I spent some time with the madam." Li Qingshan wrapped his arm around Han Qiongji's waist, which made her blush slightly. "Oh, my damned disciple." The unraging monk shook his head. "All right, I'll wait for you at Great Buddha Mountain." The group left the Azura field and returned to the main hall of the Han estate. "There's something else. Fellow Gu just happens to be here as well, so why don't we discuss it?" Yu Weiyang said. "What else? Didn't the great General King come for the Azura field?" Li Qingshan smiled. "That's just a private matter. You are indeed worthy of possessing an Azura field." Yu Weiyang remained calm. He no longer blamed Li Qingshan for his lack of respect. As a disciple of the school of the military, he followed the basic principles of the Azura realm. Powerful warriors were worthy of respect. Apart from that, there's also official business. The Soaring Locust King's hatred for you runs extremely deep. Can you tell me the whole story? Li Qingshan glanced at the unraging monk, and the monk nodded. Actually, he was not too sure why the Soaring Locust King held such a great grudge against Li Qingshan. Actually, it's nothing major. It's just that back in the Demon Suppression Hall, he tried to fool me, so I scolded him. Li Qingshan gave a rough explanation of what had happened. "I see. How bold of him. I think we can use this hatred. I'll be frank with you. You can become bait and draw out the Soaring Locust King's original body. It's a private matter and official matter. None of them seem to be anything good," Li Qingshan said. "Originally, this matter was very dangerous. I've been discussing it with your master to see how we can ensure your safety, but after seeing your performance today, the unraging master can stop worrying. He still needs to ask for your opinion," said Yu Weiyang. "I don't mind. However, the Soaring Locust King seems irascible, but he's actually cautious and paranoid. He won't fall for it so easily." Li Qingshan did not believe the Soaring Locust King would be overwhelmed by hatred. Through the few short encounters he had with him, he could sense that there was a coldness akin to an insect beneath his irascible and easily angered appearance. "Even if there's only a 10% chance, I still have to try it," Yu Weiyang said. "Then I'll be waiting to be summoned at any time." In a certain glorious palace on the Dragon Plain, the figure of a dragon suddenly appeared on a majestic altar with 9 dragons carved on it. It gradually turned into a human figure, becoming translucent. Its expression was twisted from viciousness as it roared at the sky. Chapter 1013. As Li Qingshan and Han Qiongji left the Han residence, snowflakes suddenly began to fall from the gloomy sky. "What a scenery I haven't seen in a long time." Li Qingshan reached out to catch a snowflake. In the blink of an eye, the entire world seemed to have fallen silent. "Where are we going?" Han Qiongji asked. "We'll follow your orders, madam. We'll go wherever you say." Li Qingshan smiled. "Who's your madam? You seem to have forgotten something," Han Qiongji said. "How could I have forgotten? However, the marriage proposal just now was a bit too hasty. After you've refined the wisdom fruit, I'll come back here again. Hopefully, your father won't object again." Li Qingshan turned back to look at the rich and powerful family behind him. What if he objects again? I'll beat him up. Li Qingshan waved his fist and grinned. Don't you dare. Han Qiongji widened her eyes and laughed. Then I'll have no choice. I'll use my fist. Han Qiongji gently held his hand. Since you're treating me as your madam, it doesn't matter if there's a wedding or not. Don't worry, there will definitely be one. Li Qingshan waved his hand and a cloud gathered under his feet. He carried them into the sky and flew into the distance. They intentionally didn't fly out of the cloud layer and traveled in the wind and snow. The snow was getting heavier and heavier, fluttering like goose feathers. The ground soon became pure white. Han Qiongji nestled in his arms. If only it could always be like this. There's still a long way to go. Li Qingshan said. Really? Stop trying to coax me. I'm not as easy to coax as I used to be. I feel like you're going to a very, very far place. Han Qiongji raised her head. Her beautiful face was filled with melancholy and her voice was so low that it was almost blown away by the wind. Li Qingshan was a little surprised. He had never clearly told her his identity, nor did he mention anything about the 9 heavens. I was right, wasn't I? Although I'm not very smart, I don't know why, but I feel like I can read your mind, Han Qiongji said proudly. I'll take you with me. Li Qingshan's heart softened. Han Qiongji pinched his mouth hard. It's better not to make promises that you can't do. In the past, you said that you would only take 1 ladle out of 3,000. Don't slander me. I've been cultivating for 30 years. I'm as pure as snow. Why are you looking at me like that? Don't you believe me? Under Han Qiongji's gaze, Li Qingshan gradually lost his confidence. All right, I admit that I make some mistakes occasionally. Madam, please be magnanimous and forgive me. Humph, who wants you to apologize? You can do whatever you want. Han Qiongji suddenly pushed Li Qingshan away. Li Qingshan scratched his head, not knowing what to say. Who asked me to like you? I didn't expect to be with you for the rest of my life. I originally thought that I wouldn't be moved by any man. It was a blessing to meet one. I just didn't expect that we would be together for such a short time. I thought that we would be together for at least 100 years. Then, I couldn't stand your wanton behavior and kicked you away. Bastard, you didn't even give me this chance. Wouldn't I be unable to let you go? Han Qiongji's expression changed. Sometimes she was angry, and sometimes she sighed. As she spoke, her eyes turned red. However, the rims of her eyes reddened. After Li Qingshan demonstrated his true cultivation, she felt happy for him, but she also completely understood something. She could no longer keep up with him anymore. Qiongji? Li Qingshan was emotional. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Han Qiongji came to the cloud alone. She looked down at the pure white land and waited for his return. Perhaps it was hard, but there was still hope. Now, she had to watch him go further and further away, completely disappear from her world. What kind of despair was this? She wiped her eyes and looked back with a smile. Don't worry. Although I, Han Qiongji, can't be your cultivation companion, I won't be a burden to you. You have to try your best to go further. You have to be 100 times stronger than Si Qing. You have to make everyone look up to you. In the wind and snow, her figure was like a ball of raging fire, dazzling Li Qingshan. His heart was even hotter than when he was pained by Si Qing. Han Qiongji came to him, held his face, and asked, Do you want me? Although her pretty face was red, her eyes were still fixed on him. She said seriously, Husband, I want you. Li Qingshan pulled her into his arms and kissed her red lips. They fell on the cloud together. The cloud surged and covered their bodies. The whole cloud also merged with the clouds and disappeared. He still remembered that when they first met, he didn't have a good impression of her. Even when he accepted her confession of love, he refused it half-heartedly. At that time, his mind was still full of Gu Yening. It was only after a period of time that he developed such feelings. Among all the women he had seen in his life, she was not the most beautiful, nor was she the one who moved his heart the most, nor was she the one who helped him the most. When he thought about it carefully, even this feeling was strangely ordinary. Sometimes, it even gave him an illusion that he didn't transmigrate to another world, but was still in a certain university campus, talking about a calm love. There was neither the embarrassment and depression in the cowshed, nor the ups and downs after leaving the mountain. However, when he looked back, there was only this period of calmness that made him want to stop and not think about the aspirations of the 9 heavens. After a deep kiss, Li Qingshan undressed her and kissed her neck. His heart was filled with tenderness, and his actions were especially gentle. But Han Qiongji slapped the back of his head. "What are you doing? I've never seen a woman as unromantic as you." Li Qingshan's eyes widened. "You've exposed yourself. Tell me, how many women have you done this to?" Han Qiongji said. Li Qingshan lowered his head and sealed her red lips with his mouth. He pulled hard with both hands, and with a rip, the red dress was torn apart. "My clothes?" Han Qiongji said vaguely. Not long after, a soul-stirring low moan came from the cloud, and it drifted in the wind and snow. Several days later, in Han Qiongji's cave. "Do you think I'll become smarter after eating this thing?" Han Qiongji leaned lazily in Li Qingshan's arms, and raised the fruit of wisdom in her hand. Their bodies, Luo, were filled with a healthy and powerful sense of beauty, and they faced each other calmly without the slightest shyness. "Is there anything wrong with that?" Li Qingshan yawned. After a few days of entanglement, he was also a little tired. It wasn't because he was tired, because the divine earth power could maintain his physical strength forever, but because his mind was completely relaxed. "You said you ate one, but I don't think you've become smarter," Han Qiongji said. "Because I've always been smart. Of course, the effect isn't obvious, but it'll definitely be more effective if you eat it." Li Qingshan chuckled. Chapter 10:14. You're burning the bridge after you've outlived your usefulness. Li Qingshan said. "So what if I am? I've already grown tired of using it. Piss off." Han Qiongji chewed on the fruit of wisdom as she kicked Li Qingshan away forcefully, but her movements gradually weakened. Light flowed through her eyes, and the fruit of wisdom began to take effect. "So dizzy. I wonder what will happen to me." Han Qiongji sighed with a smile. "I don't want to see you again when I wake up. This isn't a place you should be. Let's go, let's go." She murmured like that before finally closing her eyes and collapsing into Li Qingshan's arms. Li Qingshan embraced her tightly reluctantly. After quite a while, he kissed her forehead gently and patiently helped her put on her clothes, tidied up her hair, and placed a formation, a few bottles of virtue accumulation pills, and a stack of violet talismans beside her. These were all spoils of war he had obtained from Si Qing's Sumeru ring. He paced around the dwelling a few more times before suddenly shaking his head with a smile. He muttered to himself, "I'll be back no matter how long I'll be gone." Afterwards, he stepped out of the dwelling and vanished into the whistling wind and snow alone. "Yeah, I'll be waiting for you." Han Qiongji closed her eyes and said with an almost undetectable voice. Li Qingshan remembered that there was still a person he had not seen on his return to the Green Province this time. He heard from Lu Changqing that he had already lived in seclusion for many years, so he made his way through the wind and snow and arrived in a tranquil mountain forest. Unlike other places ravaged by the locust plague, this place was still lush with vegetation, and the lake was tranquil. It seemed particularly clean and beautiful in the snow. "Danqing, are you there?" Li Qingshan called out. A while later, the formation opened up, revealing a few elegant huts. A handsome man in green clothes stood in front of the huts. "Qingshan, you've returned from the Mist Province. You've undergone the second heavenly tribulation." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. In order to repair the Three Absolutes calligraphy for him, Chu Danqing's cultivation had regressed to Qi practitioners in the past. He never thought not only would his cultivation recover completely after 20 or 30 years, but it had even improved. His bearing became even more refined. "You've passed the third heavenly tribulation." Chu Danqing was even more surprised. After tempering his demon heart, Li Qingshan no longer used the spirit turtle to suppress it. The aura he naturally gave off was clearly at the third heavenly tribulation. "Looks like we didn't waste any time," Li Qingshan said with a smile. "I really don't know how you cultivate. It's simply unimaginable. Don't stand in the snow. Come in and have a seat." There's nothing to sit in the house. Why don't we go there and admire the snow? Li Qingshan pointed to the lakeside. There was a simple pavilion covered with thick grass. It was a good place to admire the snow. Alright, I just happen to have a jar of good wine. Let's drink wine and admire the snow. Let's get drunk together. Chu Danqing was also in high spirits. The two of them sat down in the pavilion, and Chu Danqing took out a scroll. With a shake of his hand, the scroll unfurled, and maids walked out of it one after another, some carrying zither. Some held a fire, and in the blink of an eye, the pavilion was set up properly. A few red-crowned cranes flew out of the painting and danced on the lake in the snow. It was natural without any pretense, perfectly blending into the surrounding scenery. It was like a freehand painting of mountains and rivers. There were also a few zither notes. It was like a cold spring that was soaked in ice and snow. It was refreshing, and for a moment, it was like an immortal's realm. Your methods as an artist sure are useful. Even I find it hard to tell the real from the fake. At first glance, Li Qingshan could not tell the real from the fake. He sighed inwardly. After so many years, Chu Danqing's painting skills have become even more exquisite. It's still not as good as the school of novels materialization. But looking at your cultivation, it doesn't seem like you have anything to do with the school of novels, Chu Danqing said modestly. The world is always unpredictable. By the way, don't tell me the wine you're treating me to is also a painting? How could that be? Chu Danqing said as he took out a blue and white porcelain jar and opened it. A fragrance rushed out of the jar and spread in the cold air, but it was different from the usual wine fragrance. Li Qingshan looked into the jar and saw the black liquid rippling in it. Only then did he come to a realization. This is ink? Don't tell me you're treating me to ink. This is Danqing wine. I usually can't bear to drink it. Chu Danqing said. Don't tell me this was brewed with your blood? Li Qingshan remembered that Chu Danqing had a special bloodline called vermilion blood. He could not help but feel suspicious. He had already drunk the blood of a friend and did not want to drink a second. I can't brew such wine. Come and have a taste. Chu Danqing ordered the painting beauties to pour the wine. When the wine entered the goblet, the fragrance became stronger. It was like ink, but not ink, like wine, but not wine. Li Qingshan tried taking a sip, and his eyes lit up. The fragrant and unique taste spread in his mouth. Wherever the wine flowed, the flesh there seemed to melt. It was not spicy, but it was even more spicy. It also contained an extremely pure spiritual energy. It was definitely not just for satisfying the taste. He drank the wine in the goblet in one gulp. His organs seemed to have turned into a mass of chaos. He closed his eyes and savored it for a while, refining the wine. Just now, he praised, "Good wine. How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I?" Chu Danqing slowly savored the wine. No wonder your cultivation speed is so fast. Where did you get this wine? Li Qingshan asked curiously. However, even a great cultivator at the third heavenly tribulation might not be able to drink this level of spiritual wine, and Chu Danqing said that he did not brew it himself. My master gave it to me. Respect from the bottom of his heart appeared on Chu Danqing's face. Master Chu left it to you? Li Qingshan asked. However, Chu Sherdao had only been a foundation establishment cultivator his entire life. No, it was another master. You've taken on another master? I wonder what kind of senior and expert he is. Li Qingshan was rather surprised. He understood Chu Danqing's feelings for Chu Sherdao. He would never take on someone else as his master so easily. Master will probably come today. You'll know when you see him. Then I'd like to see him. Come, cheers. Li Qingshan suppressed his curiosity and chatted with Chu Danqing, telling him about the various wondrous sights in the Mist Province. Chu Danqing became fascinated too. In the future, I'll definitely travel around and paint all the sights of the 9 provinces. You've been staying here all these years? Yeah. Master told me to focus on cultivation and painting. I can even only see those old acquaintances from the 100 schools of thought every once in a while. They've taken my paintings to deal with the locust plague. No locusts have come to disturb you? Li Qingshan asked. This place was deep in the mountains and forests. but it was not exactly remote across the entire Green Province. There were actually no signs of locusts gnawing through the surroundings at all. The soaring Locust King probably hasn't reached here yet. You sure are fortunate to be able to avoid the various battles and live in seclusion here. As Li Qingshan said that, he suddenly sensed something and looked over. Before he knew it, a figure had appeared on the shore nearby. He wore black robes that gave off a faint indigo hue. The long hem and sleeves of his robes dragged across the pure white snow like the remnants of a weasel's brush on a piece of paper. It was impossible to make out his face in the wind and snow. All he knew was that he was a slender man, holding an oil paper umbrella that was as red as a maple leaf as he walked over slowly. "My master is here." Chu Danqing stood up to receive him. In the blink of an eye, the man arrived in front of the pavilion. Li Qingshan looked at him carefully. The man's face was lean and elegant. His eye sockets were deep and his nose was high. His thin lips were pursed, and his thick black hair was curled messily down to his waist. For some reason, Li Qingshan thought of the frustrated poets in ancient poems. There was an air of desolation about him that came from the winter snow, but brought with it the entire late autumn season. As for his specific cultivation level, it would be overlooked. Even if one wanted to distinguish it, it would be blurry. Compared to the maids in the pavilion, he was more like a man in a painting. Li Qingshan suddenly noticed that his eyes were blank. There were no pupils. He thought to himself, is he blind? No, with my eyesight, I can even see a mosquito from 10 miles away. How can I not see his face clearly because of the wind and snow? "Master, this is the Li Qingshan I mentioned before," Chu Danqing introduced. "It's an honor to meet you." The man lightly shook off the snow on his umbrella. He did not seem surprised by Li Qingshan's cultivation level. Or perhaps he was too frustrated and tired that he became indifferent to everything in the world. "May I ask for Senior's name?" Li Qingshan asked with his hands cupped. He felt strange. They had never met before, so why did he feel a strange sense of familiarity? "Mo Wuhan." The man nodded slightly, still a man of few words. The surname Mo doesn't seem very common. Chapter 10:15. Not too many, Mo Wuhan replied indifferently. Mo Wuhan replied indifferently. He looked at Li Qingshan with his pupilless eyes. "Have we met before?" Although his eyes were pupilless, they were different from the deathly white of a blind person. Instead, they were more like the blanks in a painting. They contained a boundless and profound space, reflecting everything in the world. Li Qingshan suddenly felt like he was naked in a world of ice and snow, with nowhere to hide. The pair of blank eyes looked through his body and soul, searching for something. He almost instinctively used the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression to dispel this feeling. He smiled. "Probably not, or I would definitely have a deep impression of it." Although Li Qingshan had a guess, he was not certain. After all, the guess was just too shocking. How could it be so coincidental? And it really did not feel like it. "Probably," Mo Wuhan said. Before he knew it, the crane's cry and the zither music had settled down. Only the snow rustled down. The two men studied each other, confirming a certain suspicion in their hearts. Although they both found the suspicion rather unbelievable, they had an extremely subtle connection. The threads of fate that had once been severed began to intertwine once more in that moment. "My master has been in seclusion for many years, so it makes sense that you don't know him, Qingshan." Chu Danqing sensed the difference in the atmosphere. As he mediated, he accepted the red umbrella from Mo Wuhan's hands and invited him into the pavilion. "Fellow Mo, you've heard of my name before?" Li Qingshan turned around and sat down. Before he knew it, he no longer referred to him as senior. "Li Qingshan. That's a good name." Mo Wuhan sat down as well. His long robes and sleeves trailed down, and his long hair almost reached the ground. "Qingshan, I've mentioned you to my master quite a lot." Chu Danqing did his best to ease the atmosphere. "I think it's a good name as well. Why must one bury one's bones in mulberry fields? Life is full of green mountains," Li Qingshan recited slowly. "That's a good poem." Mo Wuhan seemed to be slightly surprised. "Qingshan, I still didn't know that's where your name comes from." Chu Danqing said. I wonder which line the name Wuhan comes from? Li Qingshan fiddled around with the wine cup. It's just an empty reputation. There's no poem worth mentioning. Mo Wuhan said. What a pity. Li Qingshan shook his head and sighed. Was it a false name or a fake one? Suddenly he said, I remember a line from a poem. A person is like an autumn swan coming with a letter. Matters are like a spring dream ending without a trace. A person is like the autumn swan that comes with a letter, and matters are like a spring dream that ends without a trace. Mo Wuhan recited in a low voice, as if he was immersed in a poem. Qingshan, it has been many years since we last met. Not only has your cultivation improved greatly, but you've also become a great poet. How disrespectful of me. Chu Danqing said in surprise. In his impression, Li Qingshan had nothing to do with the word refined. Why did his temperament suddenly change today? Moreover, his master was also a little unusual. Don't forget, I'm a disciple of the novel school. Li Qingshan smiled and said to Mo Wuhan, it's our first time meeting, so I didn't prepare any gifts. I'll give this poem to you as a greeting gift. At least I didn't drink this cup of Danqing wine for nothing. Your gift is very elegant. Chu Danqing said with a smile. But when he heard Mo Wuhan say, I won't accept it, his expression stiffened as he looked worriedly at Li Qingshan. Why not? Li Qingshan was not angry or surprised as he slowly tasted the Danqing wine. It's a good poem, but it doesn't fit the theme. At this time, there is no autumn swan, and there is no spring dream. Mo Wuhan looked at the endless snow outside the pavilion. That's true. Li Qingshan strolled to the side of the pavilion and thought for a while. Then how about this one? 1,000 mountains with birds flying, 10,000 paths with no trace of people, a lone boat with a straw hat fishing alone in the cold river. Good poem. Chu Danqing praised. Qingshan, I couldn't tell that you had such literary talent. You're too kind, too kind. Li Qingshan sniggered. Although it fits the theme, it has nothing to do with Wuhan. Mo Wuhan pondered for a while and then denied it, causing Chu Danqing to be at a loss. He did not know that his master had suddenly become so picky. It was as if he was purposely looking for trouble with Li Qingshan. It won't be without a trace in the first place. Things said and done will always leave behind some traces. As a matter of fact, even those things that we thought we've already erased might jump out again one day, Li Qingshan said meaningfully. If I can erase it once, I can erase it twice. It's not a big deal. Mo Wuhan changed the topic. I have a gift that I like on you, but I don't know if you are willing to part with it. What do you want to keep? Just tell me. Li Qingshan opened his arms. 3 Absolutes calligraphy. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed, and he could not help but look at Chu Danqing. I'm sorry, Qingshan. Master asked when he was helping me heal, Chu Danqing said apologetically. When he met Mo Wuhan in the past, he had not fully recovered from the injuries he had sustained from repairing the 3 Absolutes calligraphy. Not only did Mo Wuhan heal him, but he also displayed extraordinary painting skills, which made him decide to take him as his master. It's okay, it's a small matter. Li Qingshan did not mind. He and Chu Danqing were only friends, which was a level lower than a master-disciple relationship. Moreover, Chu Danqing had always respected his master, so he naturally would not lie to his master. Moreover, he had even exposed the Azura field, so he did not care about this small 3 Absolutes calligraphy. But it's a pity that this 3 Absolutes calligraphy is not in my hands, and I will not give it to others. Where did you get it? Mo Wuhan did not ask where the 3 Absolutes calligraphy had gone. He only asked where the 3 Absolutes calligraphy had come from, which confirmed Li Qingshan's guess even more. As a result, he said, a good friend gave it to me. What's the name of your good friend? North Moon. Li Qingshan nodded. His eyes under his thick eyebrows stared at Mo Wuhan before him. Don't tell me it's that North Moon that the Dragon King of the Sea killed in the Mist Province? Chu Danqing said in surprise. He stumbled over his words and glanced at Mo Wuhan subconsciously. Li Qingshan understood even more. He then asked, Fellow Mo, do you know a good friend like me? I do. Mo Wuhan did not hide anything. Li Qingshan suddenly began laughing aloud. His laughter broke the silence, and he stopped probing around. He pressed his hands against the stone table and leaned forward, staring straight at Mo Wuhan. He said straightforwardly, "Fellow, are you perhaps the Dragon King of Inxi?" "I am," Mo Wuhan said indifferently. Master, Chu Danqing was rather surprised. Actually, after spending so many years together, he had already vaguely guessed Mo Wuhan's identity. There was not a single great cultivator in the world who was nameless. However, since his master refused to mention it, he could not pry too much as his disciple. "May I ask what poem the name North Moon comes from?" Mo Wuhan asked. "It's just an empty title. There's no poem worth mentioning." Li Qingshan lifted up a cup of alcohol. His eyes suddenly turned scarlet red as he stared at Mo Wuhan. "Let the North Moon offer a toast to the Dragon King." A pair of pitch-black pupils suddenly condensed in Mo Wuhan's blank eyes. They were not human eyes, but dragon eyes that radiated with endless dignity. They looked down on all life, looking down on everything. Chapter 10:16. Master? Qingshan. Chu Danqing stood up helplessly. The two of them had become strangers. They were so close, yet they could not touch each other. Li Qingshan's right fingertips grew sharp claws. He smiled and revealed his fangs. The bronze wine goblet passed through the cold air and slowly moved towards the Dragon King of the Sea. Chu Danqing seemed to hear the hollow echoes of the air shattering. With every inch the wine goblet moved forward, it grew larger. How was it still a wine goblet? It was clearly a mountain forged from bronze. It whistled down from the sky, and the cloud patterns engraved on it had also turned into an overwhelming cloud layer. The Dragon King of the Sea raised his cup and the two goblets clinked. Chu Danqing's ears seemed to be struck by thunder. He was dazed for a moment. There was no bronze mountain peak and dark clouds above. The wine goblet was still the wine goblet, held in Li Qingshan's hand. The wine in the goblet rippled. The Dragon King of the Sea's eyes flashed with surprise. An invisible force surged and swept away the snow in the sky. The maids and white cranes disappeared. The wind also calmed. The world was silent. Li Qingshan drank all the alcohol in the goblet in a single gulp before casually tossing the goblet backwards. It turned to dust in the air. Awesome. The Dragon King of the Sea covered his face with his long sleeves and drank slowly. Finally, he put down the goblet gently. The moment it left his hand, there was a crack and a deep crack appeared on the goblet. "You've become stronger." "Well said. But you shouldn't have returned to Qingzhou." "Is that so?" "I had no intention of killing you again. But maybe this is heaven's will." "Wrong." "Wrong?" "Absolutely wrong." "Bullshit. First, you didn't kill me, whether you admit it or not. You were tricked by me. Second, this isn't some bullshit heaven's will. It's my, Li Qingshan's, decision to settle things with you." The Dragon King of the Sea pondered. "Makes sense. That's why I have to kill you once to put an end to this. Then come." Li Qingshan's red eyes widened like a ferocious tiger. He waved his hand and slashed horizontally at the neck of the Dragon King of the Sea. No, Chu Danqing still wanted to stop him, but the Dragon King of the Sea shook his sleeves. He flew out of the pavilion and took the umbrella from the man's hand. He unsheathed his 3-foot sword and blocked the tiger's bite. His movements were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water, not tainted by fire or smoke. Chu Danqing flew in the air. There was no sound of swords clashing, but the roar of a tiger and a dragon could be heard. The roar continued to rise, reaching beyond the 9 heavens. Widening his eyes, he looked at the grass pavilion. There were no silhouettes of the two, only dragons and tigers. Not bad. The Dragon King of the Sea stared at Li Qingshan. He seemed to be surprised that he had grown so much in such a short period of time. "How about this?" Li Qingshan asked. He gripped the hilt of his blade with both hands and swung as hard as he could. The sword suddenly bent, unable to withstand the tremendous force, and deflected. The Dragon King of the Sea's eyes shone with blood-red light. He leaned back, and the blade swept past his face, but a strand of dark hair flew into the air. Boom! A streak of blood-red light rushed out of the pavilion, destroying everything in its path like it was nothing. The frozen lake shattered, and the mountains split apart, leaving behind a terrifying gash over 3,000 meters long on the ground. Li Qingshan grabbed the strand of hair and sniffed it gently. He said from the bottom of his heart, "Now this is revenge." Anger flashed through the Dragon King of the Sea's eyes. The strand of hair suddenly twisted and turned into several dozen strands of pitch-black sword chi, shooting towards Li Qingshan's face. Every single strand was like the full strength of a great sword cultivator. Suddenly unleashed at such a close distance, even a demon king would have to suffer. Spirit Turtle's profound shell, final radiance of the setting sun. A hexagonal mirror appeared before Li Qingshan, reflecting the sword chi back. It turned back into strands of hair in the air and merged with the Dragon King of the Sea's long hair. "Break!" Li Qingshan bellowed out and unleashed the tiger demon's fierce roar. Fierce winds surged and condensed. This move was abrupt, and it had once directly shattered the nine-headed king's head. However, the Dragon King of the Sea's figure suddenly vanished without any prior signs. Li Qingshan felt a hand press against his back, and the Dragon King of the Sea's voice rang out from behind. "End it?" He immediately erupted with devastating, terrifying power, but under the Dragon King of the Sea's control, it seemed to flow smoothly and soundlessly. From the outside, it was as natural as ink seeping through a piece of paper. "You're still far from it." Li Qingshan stood as still as a mountain. He suddenly looked back, and his scarlet eyes shone like fire. The Dragon King of the Sea felt a barrier that isolated his power. Instead, a tremor came from Li Qingshan's body and spread to his whole body through his hand. Ox Demon's tremor. Boom! The ground cracked, and the cracks spread out in all directions. The grass pavilion was shattered and scattered. The Dragon King of the Sea's figure flashed into the air. He looked at his right hand, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. There was a fine scar on his pale palm, and black ink flowed from it. Not only did this palm not kill Li Qingshan, but it also injured him. He had almost forgotten how many years it had been since he had such an experience. Moreover, the feeling of power coming from Li Qingshan's body was definitely different from before. However, this was not an injury to him. In fact, it was not an injury at all. He recovered with a wave of his hand. He looked down at Li Qingshan. What was his background? Li Qingshan stood on the cracked ground. The skin on his back had turned green, and there was a black handprint on it. Although he had been chased by the Dragon King of the Sea for thousands of miles, the actual battle had only lasted for a moment. To put it simply, he had been killed instantly. He did not have an accurate understanding of the Dragon King of the Sea's power. It was only at this moment that he deeply felt the power of the Dragon King of the Sea. If it was not for the ox demon forges its hide, not only would his flesh and blood be rotten, even his tiger bones would be damaged. Moreover, the Dragon King of the Sea had not even revealed his true body. The shadow of death shrouded him, but his blood boiled and became scorching hot. Compared to trash like Si Qing, this was the opponent he wanted. Even if the enemy was strong, even if he was at a disadvantage, how could he know the outcome of life and death without a battle? Demonize. The demonic aura around Li Qingshan's body exploded, turning into a hideous demonic armor. He waved his tiger teeth and pointed it at the sky. "Come, Dragon King of the Sea, let us settle this today. Don't think about escaping. If you can't kill me today, you won't have the chance in the future. Even if you hide back in the ink sea, I will definitely find you." Escape? For the first time, the Dragon King of the Sea showed an expression similar to a smile, showing his arrogance. Li Qingshan held the hilt of his blade with both hands and swung it diagonally behind him. He suddenly opened his wings of wind, and the ground suddenly caved in to form a huge pit. A red light soared into the sky. He waved the blood-colored blade and attacked the sky. The Dragon King of the Sea flicked the tip of his sword and let out a series of dragon roars. He did not bother to move or dodge. He pointed his sword at Li Qingshan, and it fell from the sky like a black meteor. Chapter 1017. Master, Qingshan, don't. Chu Danqing's voice was drowned out by the deafening roar. A wave of air surged out, whistling through the clouds, and a brilliant ray of light shone down from the sky. Fierce winds followed closely behind like a typhoon, lifting up the thick layer of snow and revealing the yellow-brown ground. Chu Danqing flew up like a fallen leaf. He originally wanted to try and stop this battle, but seeing the scene, he no longer had such an extravagant hope. Borrowing the wind, he flew back to the cave abode and supported the formation to resist the aftermath of the battle. His heart was filled with bitterness. Which of these two men would listen to advice? Qingshan, I can't save you anymore. Chu Danqing was extremely regretful. He should not have told the Dragon King of the Sea about the Three Absolutes book. The Dragon King of the Sea was an existence who had been famous in Qingzhou for thousands of years. No one would think that the inexperienced Li Qingshan could compete with him. Like two meteors colliding, the intense confrontation gave the illusion of stagnation. The heaven and earth were also dyed black and red. The blood-red saber aura and the black sword qi clashed continuously. One was fierce and blazing, pressing forward with indomitable will. The other was majestic and ever-changing. At the same time, they collapsed and shattered inch by inch. Waves of air roared and swept out, and the hole in the clouds kept expanding. The heaven and earth turned into a stormy sea. The calm lake's surface stirred up monstrous waves. Trees were uprooted and blown away by the wind like straws. The formation of the cave abode was also on the verge of collapse. Chu Danqing looked at the terrifying scene of the end of the world and felt extremely shocked. This was the scene of a battle between top experts. What was even more unbelievable was that Qingshan could actually fight against Master head-on. Li Qingshan's red hair flew in the air as he frowned. The Dragon King of the Sea was indeed powerful. His swordsmanship was the same as the swordsmanship contained in the Three Absolutes book. However, when he wielded it, it had an incomparable spirituality that a transcendent artifact could not compare to. He could master it and change it freely. The sword qi was like silk, entangling the blood-red saber aura. The violent saber aura seemed to have fallen into a net and was quickly worn down. Li Qingshan, the gap between us cannot be made up with strength alone. You're still too young. The Dragon King of the Sea looked down at Li Qingshan. Streaks of black sword qi directly passed through the saber energy and attacked Li Qingshan. They were as mysterious as the horns of an antelope, leaving streaks of black marks in the air. He easily tore apart the demonic armor. If not for the ox demon forges its hide. He was about to be tortured to death. He still has the strength to speak. Li Qingshan was astonished. He understood that his saber technique was not just a level lower than the Dragon King of the Sea's swordcraft. He could only chop off a strand of his hair. It was probably because he was too careless. Even though it was said that one person could defeat 10 people with absolute strength, that was based on the premise that one's strength was sufficient. It was possible to bully someone like Si Qing, but there was no way he could subdue an existence like the Dragon King of the Sea. He wanted to use all his strength, but he felt as if he had nowhere to start. Even the all-conquering power of vibration could only cause waves of sword qi to surge. If this went on, he would definitely lose. Tiger Demon's fury break. Li Qingshan let out a tiger roar and gave up all defense. The sword qi took the opportunity to enter. Blood splattered all over his body, and his wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. But he did not seem to feel anything. In his eyes, there was only the existence of the Dragon King of the Sea. He broke through the layers of sword qi and slashed at his head. The Dragon King of the Sea was surprised for a moment, but he immediately regained his composure. He said calmly, "You used too much strength." Then he disappeared. Seeing that his saber had missed, Li Qingshan's eyes widened. The muscles in his arms tightened, and he forcefully twisted the saber's edge. It drew a crescent arc and slashed to his side. The Dragon King of the Sea's slightly stunned face was reflected by the saber light. He did not expect Li Qingshan to be able to determine the position he moved to. Was it just luck? Clang. The saber and sword clashed. Their gazes met, and sparks flew. The sword trembled rapidly, nullifying the power from the blade. After thousands of clashes, they overlapped and turned into a strange, clear hum. The clouds in the sky were swept away, but the fierce wind immediately settled down. Large trees fell down, but they were suddenly reduced to dust, scattering through the air. In the Rui Commandery, the great general Wang Yuliang was currently looking at a map, planning how to set up a trap to kill the soaring Locust King. Suddenly, his ears twitched and he stepped out of the door. Gazing into the distant horizon, he exclaimed in surprise, "What a powerful aftershock! Who's fighting?" He took off into the air. Countless cultivators had sensed this battle between dragons and tigers. Only great cultivators who were confident in their own strength flew over. Who knew how many years it had been since a battle at this level had occurred? The Dragon King of the Sea glanced at it from the corner of his eye and furrowed his brows slightly. With a flick of his finger, a droplet of ink flew out. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. Suddenly he saw an opening. With a violent flap of his wings of wind, he turned into a scarlet streak of light and shot past the Dragon King of the Sea's side. The tip of a sword flew out as it spun. A horrific slash appeared on the Dragon King of the Sea's abdomen, basically splitting him in half. Thick ink surged in an attempt to repair it. The scarlet streak of light turned into an arc and returned with a flash. Li Qingshan pursued the Dragon King of the Sea, refusing to give the Dragon King of the Sea any time to catch his breath. However, he was also rather confused over why the Dragon King of the Sea would suddenly do something so pointless. It was no wonder he was up to something. He followed the droplet of ink that had flown out and gazed over. The residences and thatched cottages that Chu Shidao had left behind had already vanished, reduced to dust. Chu Danqing covered his ears and knelt on the ground. His face was filled with pain as blood oozed out from between his fingers. He had already been injured by the shockwaves of the battle. The droplet of ink landed on his body and turned into a black sphere, enveloping him within. Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. He stopped moving, his expression fluctuating. "What's wrong? Why are you hesitating? You won't be able to maintain this state for long." The Dragon King of the Sea held the broken sword in his hand. His expression was still calm, as if he hadn't been hit at all. He looked at Li Qingshan with disdain. "It's nothing." Li Qingshan casually slashed at himself, leaving behind a horrifying wound that was identical to the one on the Dragon King of the Sea. "I'll return this strike to you. Let's continue in another place." He wasn't the kind of person who was overflowing with sympathy, nor did he care about hurting a few innocent people. He wouldn't even think about fighting a fair battle with the Dragon King of the Sea. Instead, he wholeheartedly wanted to join hands with Little and to slay the dragon. However, he would never use the safety of his friends to create an opening to attack his enemy. This was where his pride lay. The Dragon King of the Sea re-examined Li Qingshan and asked, "Do you really want to kill me?" "Of course. You can't kill me here. It's the same in another place. Even if I stand still and let you slash me 100 times, 1,000 times, I won't die," the Dragon King of the Sea said. "Then stand still." Li Qingshan waved his sword and pointed at the Dragon King of the Sea. He couldn't stand this kind of pretentiousness the most. The Dragon King of the Sea ignored him. He flashed to Chu Danqing's side and patted his back lightly. Chu Danqing spat out a mouthful of blood. His complexion instantly became much better. He said, "Master, stop fighting. There's no grudge that can't be resolved." "Shut up," the Dragon King of the Sea said to Li Qingshan without turning his head. "Of course, you won't be easily killed by me. Once you're no match for me, you'll run away. There's no point in continuing the fight." "I'll run away? Then may I ask how I can kill you, Lord Dragon King?" Li Qingshan asked mockingly. "If you're not afraid of death, come to the painting tomb. Only there will you have a chance to kill me," Floating Heaven said. Chapter 10:18. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like a trap disguised by a clumsy provocation. However, the Dragon King of the Sea's expression was calm as if he was stating a simple fact. Li Qingshan actually believed his words. He might not be a real dragon, but he had the pride of a dragon. He didn't want to play such tricks, so he praised, "Wu Jue Immortal really drew the charm of a dragon." The Dragon King of the Sea's expression suddenly changed. Even when Mou was killed and Li Qingshan slashed him, he still had a deep indifference. However, at this moment, he seemed to be really angered. He stared at Li Qingshan and said, "You deserve to die just because of this." Li Qingshan thought, as expected, "Whether I deserve to die or not doesn't depend on words. Don't worry, whether it is the ink sea or the painting tomb, I will go when the time comes. However, I won't be the only one coming. Today is also your only chance to kill me. I don't care if you have hundreds or thousands of people." The Dragon King of the Sea flicked his sleeves and left. He put one hand on Chu Danqing's shoulder, and the two disappeared at the same time. Li Qingshan thought for a while and suddenly felt something. He murmured, "There are so many meddlesome people." He also restrained his aura and jumped into the ground. As soon as the front foot left, several powerful auras flew over, startling the few of them. What a powerful destructive power! The clouds in the sky were swept away, and the forest was razed to the ground. The remaining demonic chi in the world was frighteningly thick. The two parties fighting had disappeared, which made them a little disappointed. After greeting each other, they each used their divine senses to explore. It wasn't a good thing for them. Moreover, the existence of this realm, even if the result of a battle couldn't affect the world, it was enough to affect the overall situation of a province. Yu Weiyang thought, "This demonic chi seems to be different from ordinary monster kings. One of them is the Dragon King of the Sea. Who is the other one? He actually fought with the Dragon King. Furthermore, he was not killed on the spot, so he is most likely a greater demon monarch." Although he hoped that it was the soaring Locust King who had a falling out with the Dragon King of the Sea, the possibility of this was not high. It was likely that it was a great demon king from another state, possibly one of the 72 demon kings. Deep underground, Li Qingshan looked at Tiger Fang in his hand. An eye-catching chip appeared on the bright red blade, once again reminding him of the power of the Dragon King of the Siege. Although he had grasped the flaw and broken the Dragon King of the Sea's sword, he had paid a huge price. Don't think that it was just a small gap. However, it directly destroyed the entire structure of the Azura divine weapon. As a result, its might and sturdiness had decreased significantly. If he were to clash with someone as strong as the Dragon King of Ink Sea, it might even become a fatal weakness. Although it could be repaired slowly with blood. However, Li Qingshan had already made plans to switch to a different weapon. The blade was more suited for crushing the weak, not against powerful opponents. In particular, it seemed extremely powerless against an opponent without a bloodline like the Dragon King of the Sea. Just now, if he continued fighting, the blade would definitely break. With my current strength, I can take out an even more powerful Azura divine weapon from the Azura altar of armaments, but where can I find a large number of weapons to sacrifice? Li Qingshan thought about it as he sheathed his blade. In order to obtain Tiger Fang, he had already sacrificed all the weapons he had accumulated over the years. If he wanted an even more powerful weapon, he would need even more and better sacrifices. Whatever. I'll go back and find Little Land first. Li Qingshan rapidly moved through the tangled underground caverns, flapping his wings and constantly accelerating. He returned to the territory of the Clear River Prefecture very soon. Suddenly, he recalled the adventures he had gone through here in the past and could not help but smile. I wonder how the Golden Cicada Spirit King's plan to ascend is going. He even said he wanted to give me a gift. I wonder if this gift can assist me in slaying a dragon. He turned around and arrived deep underground. In the old cobweb city, the carvings left behind by the night roamers had already been completely covered by crisscrossing spider silk. It had become a true spider's nest. Li Qingshan sucked in a deep breath. The permeating demon chi contained a familiar cruelty and viciousness. It was much more powerful than before. As it seemed, she had not wasted her time. Thinking about the beautiful memories of the past, he knocked on the wall with a smile. "Little Lolth, are you there?" His voice echoed through the cavern, stirring up the trembling of the spider silk. In the blink of an eye, the trembling sounds became one. At the center of the massive spider web, a giant cocoon wrapped in spider silk suddenly split open. 8 ghostly green eyes lit up in the darkness. North Moon, Helicoverpa Rosa emerged afterwards. Her bewitching face was filled with joy as she quickly made her way towards Li Qingshan. Her pitch-black dress trailed behind her, as if she was about to float away. Li Qingshan stepped onto the long bridge of spider silk and received her. He opened his arms and gave her a hug. "You've undergone the third heavenly tribulation too? Did you know? I've always been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you to become my food." Helicoverpa Rosa's smile suddenly became vicious and vicious. She bit Li Qingshan's neck. She had already waited far too long for this moment. She was eager to see him wail and beg for mercy. "Does it taste good?" Li Qingshan asked. Helicoverpa Rosa's expression changed drastically. She realized that her sharp fangs couldn't pierce through his skin. The power coming from his arms was getting stronger. She immediately used her supernatural power to turn her skin silver. However, she was shocked to find that she couldn't stop the arms that were gradually closing in. She suddenly remembered the first sentence he said when they met. "You've undergone the third heavenly tribulation too." Could it be that he had become a demon king? Stop it. We just fought with the Dragon King of the Sea and didn't gain any advantage. I'm not in a good mood. At this moment, men are prone to violence. You really have a bad memory. Dragon King of the Sea. Helicoverpa Rosa was shocked. She raised her head and stared at Li Qingshan in disbelief. She had been in Qingzhou for many years and knew how terrifying the Dragon King of the Sea was. Even if she had become a demon king, she wouldn't dare to fight with the Dragon King. She was so shocked that she even forgot the pain in her body. "By the way, I seem to have told you that if you dare to attack me again, I'll kill you. I almost forgot. So you should just die." Li Qingshan's eyes narrowed and he suddenly exerted force. Helicoverpa Rosa let out a sad cry. The bones in her body made a sound of twisting. She wanted to use her new supernatural power after becoming a demon king, but under the gaze of those red eyes, she felt that she couldn't resist. She didn't dare to resist. And until this moment, he still didn't release any demonic aura. She hadn't seen him for decades. What kind of monster had he become? She suddenly remembered what the Golden Cicada Spirit King said after she successfully passed the heavenly tribulation. At that time, she only wanted to wash away the shame and kill and devour him. "Lolth, although you've become a demon king, if you see him again one day, don't ever attack him. Otherwise, even I won't be able to save you. Remember this." Whoa. A tiger's roar was full of violence. A small figure pounced out of the giant cocoon. Where did this little demon come from? Li Qingshan casually grabbed the figure's neck. It was a little girl with demonic aura all over her body. She wore clothes woven from spider silk. Her eyes were wide open and her expression was very fierce. She struggled with all her might in his hand. He also noticed that this little girl had a faint tiger's tail on her face. Behind her was a curled tiger's tail. Her red eyes were even more familiar. He couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. "North Moon, if you want to kill me, then kill me. But even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs." Li Qingshan waved his hand. Helicoverpa Rosa flew backward. She tore apart countless spider silk and slammed into the rock wall. However, she felt relieved. She felt as if she had just survived a disaster. At that time, when the fetus in her belly moved, she had wanted to directly kill it. It was the Golden Cicada Spirit King who dissuaded her. He said to her, "Don't underestimate this child. Raise her well. In the future, she might save your life." The little girl was startled. She had never seen such a terrifying guy before. However, she stared at Li Qingshan without showing any weakness. Li Qingshan stared at the little girl. He felt that she had the same aura as Helicoverpa Rosa. However, there was another kind of aura that was more powerful and violent. Moreover, it was very familiar. It was the aura of the tiger demon. In addition, there was a feeling that they were connected by blood. Their fates were interlinked. There was no longer any doubt in his heart. However, he still felt that it was a little unreal. "This little girl is my daughter?" Li Qingshan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had just promised Han Qiongji that he wouldn't have any children outside of marriage. Then one popped out. Moreover, it was born from this annoying Helicoverpa Rosa. This was simply a huge joke. "That's right. She is your biological daughter." The Golden Cicada Spirit King's voice sounded in his mind. There seemed to be a hint of a smile in it. Is this a surprise? Li Qingshan exhaled and let go of the little girl's neck. He knelt on one knee and looked her in the eye. He asked, "What's your name?" "Go to hell. You have a personality. Just like me." Li Qingshan's eyes focused. He released the aura of the tiger demon and asked, "What's your name?" "I'm called Tiger Girl." The little girl felt an instinctive reverence. The man in front of her gave her a special sense of familiarity. A blank expression appeared on her face. She looked at Helicoverpa Rosa for help. "Do you know who I am?" Li Qingshan pointed at his own nose. "Who are you?" The tiger girl asked in a crisp voice. "I'm your father?" Li Qingshan laughed. "I'm your mother," the tiger girl said angrily. "Motherfucker." Li Qingshan raised his hand and gently patted her head. "You still don't know anything, so I'll spare you this time," he shouted at Helicoverpa Rosa. "Explain to her clearly. Teach her some manners." Helicoverpa Rosa sneered without saying a word. Li Qingshan pointed at his feet. "Get over here immediately. Don't think that I won't kill you just because you have this talisman." Helicoverpa Rosa walked over and brought the tiger girl to the side. "Don't blame her. She's violent and easily angered. It's hard for me to resolve it with my dharma," the golden cicada spirit king said. "She only inherited the tiger demon's bloodline?" Li Qingshan slightly muttered. The several bloodlines in his body were merged into one by relying on the 9 transformations of demons and gods. Moreover, there were many conflicts between them. It was reasonable to only inherit one bloodline. However, Helicoverpa Rosa's cruelty and viciousness combined with the tiger demon's violence and fierceness made it hard for a good child to be born. "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. She has her own path to walk. She's already very lucky compared to ordinary monsters. You haven't ascended yet?" Chapter 1020. Li Qingshan smiled and said, "My assistance is very impressive. The Clam King of Mirage Sea ascended as soon as she saw me, and the Banyan Tree King became a god not long ago. You found the right person to look for me." I believe so. Do you know the Soaring Locust King?" the Golden Cicada Spirit King asked. "Who in Qingzhou doesn't know? I have a deep grudge against him. When I transcend the tribulation and ascend, he will definitely come to ruin it. I need you to protect me." "You too have a grudge." Li Qingshan was very perplexed. The Golden Cicada Spirit King and the Soaring Locust King were both demon kings of the 72 paths, and they were both insects, so why would there be grievances between them? And even if there was a grudge between them, with the cautiousness of the Flying Locust King, he would not take the risk. He had humiliated the Soaring Locust King in the prefectural city of Clear River, yet the Golden Cicada Spirit King did not come in person for revenge. The Golden Cicada Spirit King was one of the peak demon kings of the 9 provinces. You might not know, but we were originally good friends. His imprisonment in the demon suppression hall of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga was all my scheme. The baby-like voice of the Golden Cicada Spirit King drifted, as if he was recalling the distant past. Betrayal. Li Qingshan finally understood. No wonder the Golden Cicada Spirit King was so sure that the Soaring Locust King would come to sabotage his plan. This hatred was as deep as the mountains and as deep as the seas. If he was the Soaring Locust King and had been suppressed for thousands of years, he would not have been able to tolerate the people who betrayed him and ascended to the heavenly realm so easily. Even if he knew the dangers involved, he would not have been able to tolerate it. He would definitely have tried to stop them. Compared to that, being insulted and killing a few clones wasn't a big deal at all. That's right, I was the one who tricked him into the demon suppression hall. Afterwards, your identity was exposed, and you were expelled from the monastery? Why bother? Li Qingshan frowned. If he had not been expelled by the Chan Monastery of Devanaga, the Golden Cicada Spirit King would have been able to learn the chant of Devanaga. Perhaps he would have undergone the tribulation and ascended a long time ago. I have no other choice. The Golden Cicada Spirit King sighed, but his mind was as firm as ever. Even if he had to choose again, it would still be the same. Since that's the case, why don't you go to another place to undergo the tribulation? Aren't you friends with the Tree King? With him watching over you in the Mist Province, even the soaring Locust King can't stand you. I had no choice. Why? Because I am a Buddhist disciple. I cannot allow him to slaughter the common people. More important than jumping out of the well? Li Qingshan looked surprised. Twice he gambled on his path of cultivation. She didn't hesitate to betray her good friend just to stop him from slaughtering the humans. This was a great love that transcended race. Even human cultivators would not risk their lives to fight the Locust King for the sake of mortals. You don't have to think so highly of me. If he ignored it, it became a demon in my heart. On the contrary, it was not conducive to transcending the tribulation and ascending. Of all things in the world, only the heart cannot escape. Since he had a merciful heart, he could only do merciful things. That's why I said I had no other choice. The Golden Cicada Spirit King's voice was calm. He did not resent the Chan monastery of Devanaga's expulsion, nor did he possess the pride of a hero. It was as if he was doing something that went without saying. Li Qingshan was in awe, not because of the compassion of the Golden Cicada Spirit King, but because he had no other choice. He had only been driven by his heart all his life, disregarding all the advantages and disadvantages, calmly accepting all fate. All right, I'll lend you a hand. Thank you, said the Golden Cicada Spirit King. I won't be leaving the Green Province anytime soon. Let me know when you ascend, and I'll rush over immediately. Alright, where's my gift? You'll only have it when the time comes, but since you've come, I'll give this blade to you. A streak of golden light flew out of the magma, passing through the earth. Li Qingshan extended his hand and grabbed the cold light, waving it around. It was an unsharpened blade. It did not have any unnecessary decorations, but it seemed simple and solemn, possessing a Buddhist nature. Holding it in his hand, even his mind became solemn. It was an extremely rare Buddhist treasure. This is my blade. When I first came to the Chan monastery of Devanaga, I originally wanted to secretly learn the Buddhist cultivation method and strengthen my cultivation. If I had the opportunity, I wanted to destroy the Chan monastery of Devanaga and deal a heavy blow to the human cultivation community of the Green Province. However, as my cultivation gradually deepened, I began to hesitate. My master gave this blade to me. This blade isn't used for clashing with others. Instead, it's used for calming the mind and severing worries, so it's called pettiness severing. What a good name. Li Qingshan raised the blade, and the golden light illuminated the cavern. Even without the suppression of the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, his demon heart became calm. From the perspective of cultivation, pettiness severing was even more valuable than tiger's fang. Unfortunately, it was not particularly useful to him. Since he had no regrets in his demon heart, all he could do was walk this path to the end. Compared to severing his worries, he wanted to kill powerful enemies more. Pettiness severing. Helicoverpa Rosa exclaimed in surprise. Having followed the Golden Cicada Spirit King for many years, she obviously recognized the blade. She never thought the Golden Cicada Spirit King would actually give it to Li Qingshan. Thinking back to the terrifying strength he had demonstrated just now, his thoughts of revenge gradually faded. Demons worshipped the strong. He had already proven his strength. As a result, he walked over with the tiger girl. The tiger girl looked up at Li Qingshan. Her little face was filled with reluctance, but after being glared at by Helicoverpa Rosa, she still called out crisply, "Father." Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. This was different from having an adopted son. This was his bloodline. His blood flowed through this little girl's body, so he naturally felt a sense of affection for her. He glanced at Helicoverpa Rosa. "You've taught me well. I'll spare your life this time." "I won't attack you again," said Helicoverpa Rosa. "Whatever you want." Li Qingshan turned to the tiger girl and said, "Although I'm your father, I can't give you anything other than this bloodline. You have to walk your own path in the future. I don't want you to give me anything. I'm very strong myself," said the tiger girl. "Is that so? As expected of my daughter." Li Qingshan smiled slightly. With a clang, he pulled out the tiger's fang from his waist. Together with the severing vexation, he hung them in front of the tiger girl. "Choose one." These two blades were not something she could control right now. Her temperament would definitely be greatly affected. She would not only choose the blade, but also the path of her life. If she chose the severing vexation, she could inherit the golden cicada spirit king's Buddhist wisdom. She would gradually restrain her temperament and no longer be violent and easily angered. But if she chose the tiger's fang, she would embark on a path of Azura. She would fight and slaughter to the end, completely activating the tiger demon's blood in her body. Before Li Qingshan finished speaking, the tiger girl pounced forward and grabbed the tiger's fang. Then, she returned to her original position. Her eyes sparkled as she played with the severing vexation, lovingly like a child who had obtained her favorite toy. "Didn't you say that you don't want my things?" Li Qingshan smiled as he sheathed the blade. The scabbard personally made by the banyan tree king naturally changed shape and swallowed the severing vexation into the scabbard. The tiger girl blushed and pouted. "I didn't ask you for it. You were the one who insisted on giving it to me." Chapter 1021. The Golden Cicada Spirit King did not say anything else. Unless it was an irreconcilable conflict with the Flying Locust King, he did not want to interfere with other people's hearts. Li Qingshan asked the tigress girl, "Do you like it?" The tigress girl nodded her head forcefully. Her eyes never left the tiger's fang. Although she had not refined the tiger's fang, she was already affected by the blade. Her killing intent surged and she wanted to kill something. This blade is called the tiger's fang. It's your destiny. However, you are still far from being able to control it. Don't force yourself to use it, or you will die. It's the same for your own strength. Li Qingshan pressed the tigress girl's shoulder and said seriously. If he had not stabbed himself during the battle with the Dragon King of the Sea and allowed the tiger's fang to drink enough blood, she would have been swallowed by the tiger's fang in the blink of an eye and become a sacrifice for the Azura deity weapon. The tigress girl could not help but put down her tiger's fang. She looked at the man called father in front of her and met his crimson eyes. Suddenly, she felt an indescribable feeling and suppressed the violence in her heart. "Feel it?" Li Qingshan closed his eyes, and a tsunami of killing intent burst out of his body. Tiger stripes crawled on his face, forming a king's character on his forehead. His crimson hair flew like fire, and a ferocious tiger demon appeared behind him. He had already used his innate magical ability, Tiger Demon's Fury. Helicoverpa Rosa retreated almost instinctively and looked at Li Qingshan in shock. This was his true strength. Just the aura he emitted made her feel like she could not resist him. The tigress girl felt it even more deeply, as if she was swallowed by the crimson tiger. She could not see or hear, only the deepest darkness. If she did not also have the tiger demon's bloodline, her will would have been completely crushed. "This is the first thing I'll teach you, fear." Li Qingshan's voice came from the deep darkness. "I'm not afraid of anything." The tigress girl's thoughts were even intermittent. "Only the dead have nothing to fear. Try to be friends with him." Li Qingshan reprimanded, but in his heart he was somewhat impressed. As expected of the tiger demon's bloodline. "Yes. Look into my eyes." Li Qingshan suddenly opened his eyes, and they were like a bright red star in the endless darkness. The tiger girl couldn't help but look over, and her mind seemed to be sucked into his eyes. However, she discovered that his eyes, which were filled with crazed killing intent, were still as clear as before. It was as if the center of the typhoon was calm. "This is the second thing I'll teach you. I can't describe this state either. It's not simple self-control, but don't be controlled by the killing intent. Remember this feeling." Li Qingshan retracted his innate ability. In an instant, the tiger girl was sweating profusely. He had no strength left in his body and could only support his body by holding on to his canine teeth. Finally, don't listen to other people's nonsense. Even if it's your parents, walk your own path. This is the third thing I'll teach you. Li Qingshan laughed, turned around, and disappeared into the darkness. The tigress girl fell forward. Before she hit the ground, Helicoverpa Rosa picked her up and said coldly, "Useless." The tigress girl revealed a look of shame. She lowered her head and pursed her lips without saying a word. "I hate this kind of expression of yours the most. It's as hateful as your father." Scram. Helicoverpa Rosa threw her far away as if she was throwing away a piece of trash. Mother? The tigress girl landed lightly and looked at Helicoverpa Rosa in surprise. Don't come back here for a year. If I find you within 1,000 miles, I'll press you into the magma. Helicoverpa Rosa's face was filled with cruelty. I'm never coming back. The tigress girl's eyes reddened. She roared loudly and turned around to leave with her saber. Her tiger tail swayed behind her as she ran over 100 miles in one breath, smashing countless stalagmites. Tears rolled down from her eyes, and she wanted to cry. Although she inherited the blood of the tiger demon, she was still a child without the spiritual inheritance. At this time, Helicoverpa Rosa's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Don't leave the territory. None of your business. The tigress girl continued forward. You can accompany her and leave. The golden cicada spirit king said to Helicoverpa Rosa. This place would soon become a battlefield. The confrontation between the three demon kings was accompanied by the fourth heavenly tribulation. Even Helicoverpa Rosa, who had just become a demon king, was in danger of dying. Lord Golden Cicada, if it wasn't for your care all these years, I don't know when I could become a demon king. Perhaps I would have already died in the hands of that bastard North Moon. No matter what, I'll send you on your last journey. But if there's a fatal danger, I'll escape. Last journey? That's really inauspicious. The Golden Cicada Spirit King smiled. Who asked me to be so vicious? Didn't you already understand the heart of kindness? Helicoverpa Rosa sensed the tigress girl's aura until she left her range of perception. Suddenly, she felt a sense of loss. From spider to demon king, for the first time in her life, she felt concerned. Li Qingshan returned to the Qing Shao dwelling. Little and was still refining the skull prayer beads. It did not seem like he could finish them in a short amount of time. He told Li Qingshan about his battle with the Dragon King of the Sea. Looks like I guessed correctly. He's also a painting of the 5 Absolutes immortal. The painting should be in the painting tomb, so if I want to kill him completely, I have to go to the painting tomb. Little and propped up his chin with one hand and thought as he powered the samadhi flames of white bone. When I mentioned the 5 Absolutes immortal, he flew into a rage. Li Qingshan snickered. This is probably the Dragon King of the Sea's inner demon. The Clam King of Mirage Sea is afraid that everything is a dream, but he really does come from an illusion. As a matter of fact, even his own will and personality were created by someone else. How can someone as proud as him endure this? I see. You're right, but to me, all I need to do is look forward. Why do I need to care about where I come from? A painting of the 5 Absolutes immortal is much more noble than the cowherd of Crouching Ox Village. Li Qingshan was open-minded about everything. He did not understand just what these intelligent and powerful demon kings were conflicted about. The more intelligent and wise you are, the easier it is for you to become trapped. Little and felt rather emotional. If it were not for the fact that she had decided to follow Li Qingshan's path, she would either be obsessed with the path of white bone and great beauty, or she would be trapped between Buddhism and the demonic. You're saying I'm simple-minded, but I'm all brawn. Li Qingshan smiled. I didn't say that. Little and stuck out her tongue. When you clashed with him, how did you feel about his strength? He's stronger than me, but a battle of life and death will only be decided in the final moment. However, if I charge into the Ink Sea right now, I'll definitely lose. I might even die there. Try not to go to the painting tomb. Try to kill him in the Green Province. Little and said calmly. The painting tomb was a completely unknown domain. No one knew just how much strength the Dragon King of the Sea could display. He might even be stronger than he was in the Ink Sea, and once he was defeated, there would be nowhere for him to run. I obviously won't be led around by the nose by him, but I really want to fight him alone and fight to the death. Li Qingshan sighed. Although they had only clashed for a short while, the Dragon King of the Sea was the best opponent he had ever encountered in his life. It was said that beauties were hard to find, and confidants were hard to find. A good opponent was no different. Little and said, there's still a chance. Perhaps I should use the Soaring Locust King as practice first. Li Qingshan mentioned the Golden Cicada Spirit King's request for help, and the two of them discussed it further. When he mentioned Helicoverpa rosa and the tiger girl, the little phoenix's eyes suddenly lit up. First Father, are you saying I have a younger sister? It might be an older sister as well, Piao Tianxue said. Chapter 1022. No, I must be big brother. Little Phoenix insisted. Fine, suit yourself. Li Qingshan turned his head and continued to talk to little Anne. Dad, I want to go find her. Little Phoenix grabbed Li Qingshan's arm. Why are you looking for her? Do you need a reason? We are siblings. I think you are just tired of staying here. Li Qingshan laughed. Staying here is like being in prison. There is no meaning at all. I could have fought some skeletons, but now I can only sit here. It is better to go out and gain experience. Otherwise, there is no point in coming to Qingzhou. I beg you, Dad, let me go. Little Phoenix begged. I promised your second father to take care of you. If you are killed and eaten, I will not be able to explain. Then I deserve it. If I don't dare to go out with such power, can I still be called a man? Dad, when you were outside, you were not as good as me. Little Phoenix clenched his fist and said in high spirits. You are not a man. Li Qingshan said disapprovingly, using his fist to support his cheek. Little Phoenix suffered a great blow. Let him go. Little Anne said. All right. After a moment of consideration, Li Qingshan agreed. Staying here was no longer beneficial to the Little Phoenix's cultivation, so going out to train was not bad either. As for the issue of safety, he was actually not worried. The Little Phoenix was rather childish, but he possessed the legacy of the Phoenix, so he was smarter than regular people. As long as he did not provoke an opponent on the level of the Dragon King of Ink Sea, he could escape even if he could not defeat them. Little Phoenix cheered. He rushed out of the cave and turned into a ray of light, disappearing among the mountains. If he can survive 3 heavenly tribulations, he will be a good help. Little Anne handed a handful of phoenix feathers to Li Qingshan. During this time, she had been looking for all kinds of reasons to pluck them. I can't count on that. I'd better get my Phoenix Nirvana Sutra to the 5th stage as soon as possible. Li Qingshan pulled out the trouble severing from his waist and handed it to little Anne. Is this useful to you? If it's useless, I'll keep it as a sacrifice. Cut the vexation. Little Anne's eyes flashed. You recognize this saber? Li Qingshan asked. The Buddhist commandment blade was once a legacy item of the past abbot of the Chan monastery of Devanaga. It's one of the greatest Buddhist treasures in the world, even regarded as the greatest treasure of Buddhism. Later, it fell into the hands of the Golden Cicada Spirit King. The Chan monastery of Devanaga has always wanted to retrieve it, but they couldn't find it. Even if we find him, we can't do anything to him. Though, in other words, the Golden Cicada Spirit King almost became the abbot of the monastery. Yeah, the Chan monastery of Devanaga has put up a public bounty. If anyone can recover this saber. It didn't matter if they were Buddhist disciples or not. Apart from the chant of Devanaga, you can exchange it for any of the 3 items, regardless of whether it's a magic treasure, a cultivation technique, or a panacea. So precious. Is it useful to you? Originally, Li Qingshan did not pay too much attention to the blade. He only wanted to use this opportunity to settle things with the soaring Locust King. He never thought the Cut the Vexation blade would have such great origins. Regular Buddhist treasures are useless to me, but this Cut the Vexation blade is extraordinary. It can assist me in balancing the Buddhist and demonic powers. It'll bring great benefit to my cultivation. Little and gently stroked the unsharpened blade. Faint Buddhist light seeped out from the tip of her finger, gradually enveloping the entire blade and slowly seeping in. She began refining it. She possessed the cultivation of a monk king, and the Golden Cicada Spirit King had already erased her imprint. Before long, she had successfully refined it. The Buddhist light on the Cut the Vexation blade receded, returning to its simple and plain appearance. Suddenly, she focused and calmed down. The Buddhist light in her eyes flickered, and she swung the blade at Li Qingshan. The Buddhist light turned into a sharp blade with tremendous might, as if she wanted to cut Li Qingshan in half. Li Qingshan did not dodge, allowing the blade to land on top of his head. His mind buzzed as if something had split open. A ray of light shone into the darkness, and his mind became clear. He touched his forehead. There was not even a mark on it. He was confused. What's going on? Rumor has it that this blade can cut through 3,000 worries. How's the effect? Little and asked with a smile. Li Qingshan was surprised to find that his demonic heart had become much clearer. He had devoured the demonic hearts of other demon kings and forcefully ascended to demon king. Although he had gone through some screening, it was inevitable that the demonic nature of other demon kings would be mixed in. This was harder to remove than the impurities of demonic power. He did not expect a single slash to have such a miraculous effect. Good blade. But it's a Buddhist treasure, but it can actually help demonic cultivators. How strange. This blade is known as only cuts through worries, not people. The key is not good or evil, but the heart. In other words, a demonic heart is no different from a relic. Little and placed the vexation blade on his knees. He had a hint of understanding. I see. Li Qingshan nodded. His demonic heart had merged with his battle-hungry, bloodthirsty demonic nature. This could be regarded as a part of his heart as well. However, all sentient beings possessed a hint of benevolence in their hearts. He wondered whether the demon folk who created the demon suppression statuary had been struck by this blade, which allowed him to understand his heart. No wonder the Chan monastery of Devanaga has offered such a great reward. The vexation blade is basically a god artifact for cultivation, and it can be used on others. It can increase the overall cultivation of an entire sect. If you bring the vexation blade back to the Chan monastery of Devanaga, I wonder if the dauntless monk will immediately give up the position of abbot to you. It's possible. Little smiled and thought about it. Perhaps the golden cicada spirit king wants to use me to return the vexation blade to the Chan monastery of Devanaga. I'm just joking. If I return it now, I'll definitely be suspected by those monks. Give me a few more slashes. Li Qingshan pointed at his head. In the blink of an eye, over a dozen days had passed. The door to the dwelling opened. Li Qingshan stepped out of the dwelling, and Yu Bing was waiting outside. He handed over the great general king's invitation card politely, asking Li Qingshan to leave the mountain and deal with the soaring locust king. Li Qingshan glanced at the invitation card and asked, "Has Qiongji emerged from secluded cultivation?" "Not yet. Please have the great general king wait for a few more days. I'll pay a visit to the Chan monastery of Devanaga and then go to the Han estate for the appointment." With that, Li Qingshan took off. All Yu Bing could do was smile bitterly. The current Li Qingshan obviously had the right to make the great general king wait. Li Qingshan flew through the air. Over the past few days, he had refined the phoenix feathers. Although he had strengthened the phoenix bloodline, the phoenix's scripture of Nerva had been suppressed by the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, so he had not made much progress. All he could do was slowly balance fire and water before breaking through. Instead, his demon heart had become even purer and more thorough under the wondrous power of the vexation blade, stabilizing his foundation. He was going to the Chan monastery of Devanaga this time to learn the 9th layer of the demon suppression statuary. Even though it was nowhere close to the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, he believed that once he completely practiced this cultivation method, his strength would definitely reach a whole new level. At dusk, a great Buddha stood among the mountains under the illumination of the resplendent light. He had arrived at the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Drifting Astronomy. Chapter 1023. Even if they were not disciples of Buddhism, they would still be shocked by the boundless Buddhist Dharma when they saw this. Li Qingshan had been like that in the past. However, right now, he thought inside, if I transform into a demonic god, I'll still be much weaker than Great Buddha Mountain. Who is it? Flying is forbidden in the skies above the Chan monastery of Devanaga. A bellow rang out from the monastery. I almost forgot about this rule. Li Qingshan descended from above and arrived before the great entrance. He called out, "Secular disciple, Li Qingshan." His voice rumbled through Great Buddha Mountain. Behind Great Buddha Mountain, in front of the demon suppression hall. What, is he still unwilling to come out? The dauntless monk asked with a frown. The unraging monk shook his head. His chubby face that had always been full of smiles was now filled with worry. If it weren't for the fact that his cultivation had been sealed up, he would have died from chi deviation already. But if this continues, that's not surprising. Even you and I struggle to let go of something like this so easily. If we had the worry-severing blade, we might have been able to save him. The dauntless monk sighed heavily. His inner demons have already run deep. Even if we have the worry-severing blade, we probably won't be able to sever all of his worries, said the unraging monk. I wonder where the golden cicada spirit king is right now. The two monk kings conversed when they suddenly looked back. Afterwards, Li Qingshan's voice boomed out. Li Qingshan. The dauntless monk frowned slightly. He did not have a good impression of Li Qingshan. He asked the unraging monk, has he really undergone the third heavenly tribulation? You'll know with a single look. The unraging monk smiled and bellowed, damn disciple, why don't you hurry up and piss off to the back of the mountain? I'm coming. Li Qingshan smiled and strode forward. The monks only heard his voice. Before they could even make out his figure, he had already stepped through the entrance, passing through the pavilions and buildings and arriving at the back of the mountain. The wind whistled along the way, ruffling countless monk robes. Dauntless abbot, long time no see. Li Qingshan arrived in front of the demon suppression hall and suddenly stopped, clasping his hands with a smile. The dauntless monk shivered inside. Just his movements and stillness demonstrated his cultivation. He stared at Li Qingshan silently. Li Qingshan did not hide his presence either. The demon king's presence he gave off made the dauntless monk frown even deeper. If it were not for the fact that he knew about the demon suppression statuary, he probably would have taken action already to purge the demons. Your cultivation has improved again, the unraging monk said in surprise. It had only been a few days since they last met, yet Li Qingshan's aura had become purer and purer. He had actually completely consolidated his cultivation at the third heavenly tribulation. This disciple of his had brought him far too many surprises. Time waits for no man. Of course, I have to advance bravely. Master, quickly open the demon suppression hall. I want to go to the 9th floor. Li Qingshan said straightforwardly. Go. The unraging monk cut right to the chase. With a wave of his robes, the door to the demon suppression hall opened. It was pitch black and unfathomable. Li Qingshan threw himself in without the slightest hesitation. Senior brother? The unraging monk looked at the dauntless monk beside him. Such cultivation speed truly is unbelievable. Do you know the reason behind this? The dauntless monk unfurled his fist from under his sleeve. A great cultivator at the third heavenly tribulation under his wing should have been something worthy of celebration, but it made him feel slightly uneasy. He befriended the banyan tree king in the Mist province, so he must have come across some fortuitous encounter, the unraging monk said. He also felt like his explanation was a little forced. Unless he was a reincarnated celestial who possessed innate wisdom, it was impossible for him to cultivate at such a rate. However, based on Li Qingshan's past behavior, he really did not seem like a reincarnated celestial. And, if he were a celestial, why would he need to become his disciple and learn some demon suppression statuary? Colluding with a wretched demon? The dauntless monk said in thought. The Green Province was not as wild and chaotic as the Mist Province. There was a clear separation between humans and demons. In particular, disciples of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga were forbidden from interacting with demons casually. This crime could be serious or minor, depending on what kind of wretched demon they were colluding with. If they were colluding with the soaring Locust King, then they would not be spared from the death penalty. If they were just regular demons, then the punishment of the monastic discipline hall would be enough. It might even just be a verbal warning. However, even the dauntless monk found it difficult to judge if they were acquainted with a 10-demon king. There had never been an example like this in the past either. The Dragon King of the Sea of the Green Province stood aloof and aloof. He did not even pay much attention to demons, let alone befriending humans. The Banyan Tree King has always been known for his benevolence and universal love. He can't be viewed as a regular wretched demon, the unraging monk said seriously. I don't practice the demon suppression statuary, but the feeling he gives me is no different from a demon king. If his fortuitous encounter came from the Banyan Tree King, then so be it, but the Mist Province is riddled with demon disasters and countless demon caverns have opened. Senior brother, you're worrying too much. Regular demon kings won't return here, much less enter the demon suppression hall calmly. There's not a single person who doesn't know that he worked with the Merfolk King in the south to sweep through the demon caverns. He might be a little wanton, but his actions have not brought shame to the Chan Monastery of Devanaga, nor have he brought shame to me. Senior brother, you shouldn't worry too much. I also hope I'm worrying too much, but don't try to protect him. If the situation doesn't look right, I'll order you to suppress him in the demon suppression hall in the name of the abbot. You can't make any mistakes. I'll be responsible for my disciple, said the unraging monk. By now, Li Qingshan had already arrived on the 8th floor of the demon suppression hall. He reviewed the demon suppression statues one by one, comprehending a little more with the demon suppression statuary that suited him. He pondered for a while before the 8th demon suppression statue before finally entering the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall. Immediately, demon chi surged into his face like a thick mist that refused to disperse, surging in the surroundings. Li Qingshan seemed to return to the demon cavern in the south. He came to a realization: there really is a demon cavern below the demon suppression hall, and it's much larger than any demon cavern I've seen in the south. If I let demon chi surge into the air, it'll be enough to affect an area of 500 kilometers. Li Qingshan expanded his soul sense and searched for the location of the 9th demon suppression statue. He discovered that the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall was even vaster than the previous 8 floors combined. Apart from demon chi, there was nothing else. Let alone glorious walls, there was not even a single pillar. It was like he had arrived in a different world. Found it? Li Qingshan found the 9th demon suppression statue very soon. He parted the demon chi and made his way over. Suddenly, a weak light lit up before him, illuminating a withered figure who sat in front of the demon suppression statue without moving at all. Li Qingshan walked over and discovered that the withered figure was a monk. His aura was extremely weak, and his skin was pale and shriveled. He basically held up his tattered monk's robes with his skeleton. His eyes were tightly shut, and his face that was no different from a skeleton's was filled with pain. He held a broken lamp in his withered hand, which gave off a weak glow and protected the monk from the demon chi's corrosion. However, in the surging demon chi, the light could be extinguished at any times. The more Li Qingshan looked at the lamp, the more familiar it seemed. He finally remembered where he had seen it before. He said in surprise, "One lamp monk." Chapter 1024. What's wrong with you? Li Qingshan was surprised. Back then, he had saved the one lamp monk's life from the soaring Locust King. Back then, the one lamp monk had even been extremely grateful to him, so why had he become like this now? It's all your fault. It's all your fault. The one lamp monk grabbed Li Qingshan's wrist firmly. What did I do wrong? Li Qingshan was even more confused. But why did you save me? The one lamp monk glared at Li Qingshan like he was looking at an irreconcilable enemy instead of a savior. You must be out of your mind. Li Qingshan shook off his hand and looked at the demon suppression statue. If you didn't save me, the soaring Locust King wouldn't have been able to escape, and so many people wouldn't have died. The one lamp monk murmured to himself. Oi, don't push your responsibility away. You were the one who was bewitched by the soaring Locust King. You have to go to the 9th floor. Li Qingshan turned around and pointed at his nose. The one lamp monk shuddered and slammed his head against the ground, producing a thump. Yes, it's all my fault. I deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Before long, his face was covered in blood, mixed with tears. He was miserable and pitiful. Ever since the locust plague broke out, the one lamp monk had been under tremendous mental pressure. He spent every day in pain and regret. Although no one said it was his responsibility, the soaring Locust King's escape clearly had something to do with him. In the very beginning, he even went everywhere to eradicate the locust plague, until a year ago, 500 kilometers away from the Chan monastery of Devanaga, a gale whistled through a city of earth. Miserable cries rose and fell as a dense cloud of insects danced through the air. A cluster of flames surged into the air, incinerating the swarm of locusts before withdrawing into an oil lamp. The flame of the lamp was extraordinarily bright, burning extremely unsteadily. The one lamp monk's brows were tightly furrowed. His ugly face was filled with exhaustion, and his footsteps were extraordinarily heavy. In order to eradicate the locust plague, he basically did not sleep or rest at all. He completely relied on pills and spiritual stones to sustain himself, but even with that, he was still unable to stop the spread of the locust plague. All he could do was watch as the locusts devoured city after city. The sun was scorching hot. He pursed his dry lips and shouted, "Flying Locust King, get out here. Lamp is here. Reverend Eating, we meet again." At the corner of the street, a yellow-skinned, well-built man appeared. His body exuded a thick demonic chi. It was a flying locust demon general. His face was filled with a warm smile, as if he had met an old friend. He even handed over the food in his hand. "Do you want some?" It was a severed arm with a string of prayer beads on the wrist. Monk Eating recognized the string of prayer beads at first glance. He glared angrily and said, "Shitty Ida. You know him? This bald donkey doesn't know what's good for him. How dare he talk in front of me? Does he think he's Reverend Eating? Give me your life. Buddha's light of salvation." One lamp flew into a rage. Dazzling platinum light burst out of his body. Half of the city was swallowed by the light, and even the sunlight was dimmed. The dust dispersed, and a black circle appeared on the ground. All the structures there had been destroyed. The flying locust demon commander stood at the edge of the circle. "Reverend Eating, you sure are fucking bright. I also have something very bright here. I'll give it to you." A head was tossed out, rolling to the one lamp monk's feet. To no surprise, it was the head of Junior Brother Ida. He had died with his eyes wide open. His face was filled with pain and fear. Spear of great radiance. The one lamp monk lunged at the flying locust demon commander furiously. Streaks of platinum light shot out. The flying locust demon commander flew backwards, avoiding the streaks of light with composure as he let out a wild and delighted laugh. "Come on, come kill me. Don't you hate the Chan monastery of Devanaga? I'm a disciple of the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Send your original body over." The one lamp monk bellowed hysterically. "Kill you? Why would I kill you? You're my great savior. I can't even thank you enough. It's all thanks to you that I can eat so many delicious things," the flying locust demon commander said from behind the one lamp monk with a flash. The one lamp monk suddenly swung his arm backwards, and the oil lamp sprayed with flames. The flying locust demon commander had already taken to the horizon. "Come down and fight me to the death." The one lamp monk roared into the sky. "I know you want to die very much, so I'll never kill you. I'll keep you alive as a witness. Witness how I eat billions of humans, eat every single one of your seniors and juniors." Ha! In the burning city, the one lamp monk knelt on the ground, hugging the head of Junior Brother Ida and sobbing aloud. 3 days later, he returned to the Chan monastery of Devanaga and invited himself into the demon suppression hole to receive his punishment, which lasted until today. When Li Qingshan saw such a grown man hugging his head and sobbing, he found it rather difficult to bear. "Do you have to be like this? It's not like you did it on purpose. Moreover, I didn't do it to save you back then. I just couldn't stand it. If he hadn't let go of his own accord, you would have been torn in half. I never thought he'd escape. How unexpected." Outside the demon suppression hall, the dauntless monk's face darkened. Originally, he was still thankful to Li Qingshan for saving the one lamp monk, but he never thought he would not save him at all. Instead, he made up his mind to kill. "How could you be so relaxed?" the one lamp monk questioned. "It's not like I did anything wrong." Li Qingshan shrugged. "Do you know how many lives in the Green Province have been plunged into misery and suffering to the mouths of insects?" the one lamp monk said excitedly. "It's not like I killed those people. No matter how many times I say it, so what if it's my fault? If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Li Qingshan said. The one-lamp monk fell silent for quite a while. You're not a Buddhist disciple at all. You don't have any compassion at all. You don't know anything. Bullshit. Li Qingshan was immediately angered. What he hated the most was when other people arrogantly told him that they didn't know anything. Even a demon king like the Banyan Tree King, who knew everything, had never said something like that to him. He grabbed the one-lamp monk's clothes and pulled him in front of him. Demonic light flickered in his eyes. You really are trash. Anger flashed through the one-lamp monk's eyes. As a genius disciple with the greatest chance of undergoing the third heavenly tribulation, no one had ever called him trash before. You really are wrong. But do you know where you're wrong? You're too weak. I'm too weak? The one-lamp monk was stunned. No one had ever said that to him before. If you weren't so weak, you wouldn't have been tricked into coming to the 9th floor by the soaring Locust King. You would have been able to find the soaring Locust King and kill him. Li Qingshan was very skilled at finding simple answers to complicated questions. Although the answer was not necessarily correct, it would definitely be very practical. The one-lamp monk was stunned. Do you know why a demon folk like him can place the statue here? Li Qingshan grabbed the one-lamp monk's head and pressed his face against the demon suppression statue. Lay down the butcher's cleaver and attain instant enlightenment. The one-lamp monk said almost instinctively. After a year of meditation, he had gained some understanding of the demon suppression statuary. You're completely wrong. It's because he's powerful enough. What do you mean by lay down the butcher's cleaver and attain instant enlightenment? You're still powerful enough. How can trash lay down the butcher's cleaver? Don't hate the soaring Locust King. If you want to hate someone, hate yourself for being too weak. Chapter 1025. What nonsense, the dauntless monk said furiously. No Buddhist disciple would promote the law of the jungle. Otherwise, why would there be 10,000 Buddhist scriptures? Only a demonic cultivator would pursue power at all costs. Senior brother, look. The unraging monk pointed out and projected the image of the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall. The one-lamp monk collapsed on the ground, his expression constantly changing. The oil lamp beside him flickered and lit up instead. His mind is in a mess. He's actually listening to nonsense like that. The dauntless monk frowned. Even if it's nonsense, it still has its uses. You can call this fighting poison with poison. The unraging monk smiled. The one-lamp monk's mind surged. No one had ever said something like that to him. He had grown up in the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Although there was intense competition here, it definitely did not follow the cruel law of the strong preying on the weak. Even entering the demon suppression hall for trials was a matter of course to purge demons and protect the righteous path. Even if he unfortunately died in battle, he would be sacrificing himself for the righteous path and returning to paradise. It was precisely because of his lifelong pursuit of benevolence and salvation that he discovered that his actions had led to such terrifying consequences that he found it increasingly unbearable. Even the dauntless monk who tried to convince him to pull himself together naturally believed he had a great responsibility, so no one could persuade him otherwise. He was unable to forgive himself either. However, Li Qingshan gave him another answer, which made him feel that he was no longer unforgivable. He looked at his withered hands and muttered to himself, "So I'm too weak? That's why I can't make any decisions. That's why the Locust King didn't even bother to kill me. If I was as strong as Abbot Dauntless, I wouldn't have been used by him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have fallen into such a state, and we wouldn't have caused so many deaths." All of a sudden, he yearned to become stronger. He, who was almost crushed by guilt, seemed to have found a way out in the endless darkness. The regret of the past could only torture his mind. No matter how much he punished himself, he could not change the past. However, the desire to become stronger injected a new motivation in his heart. It was the power to move forward. The lights suddenly lit up, dispersing the surrounding devil chi. He saved me again. Monk Eden glanced at Li Qingshan's back. He closed his eyes and circulated the great light scripture. His surroundings shone brightly, shattering the restrictions the unraging monk had left behind. If he wanted to become stronger, he had to raise his cultivation and undergo the third heavenly tribulation. Gradually, his shriveled body began to fill up again. Color returned to his skin. However, his appearance was extremely ugly. His nose drooped down, his lips turned upwards, and his ears were protruding. He was not much better looking than a skeletal face. But that righteous aura was enough to make people ignore his appearance. Li Qingshan glanced at him from the corner of his eye and could not help but smile. He was not saying this to the one-lamp monk because he had nothing better to do. He could still remember how the one-lamp monk had tried his best to persuade him not to go to the 8th floor of the demon suppression hall the first time they met. He had no ulterior motives at all, considering his safety. He clearly possessed startling strength, but he did not possess the arrogance of the first senior brothers he had seen in his life. Afterwards, they fought their way to the 8th floor together. The one-lamp monk had assisted him too. He had personally slain 5 or 6 demon commanders and demon folk, and there were countless demon generals and demon folk. He had left behind quite a good impression. He was reluctant to see him die in regret. The pain on the one-lamp monk's face subsided, replaced by solemnity. His ragged monk's robes burned up in the light, turning to ash and revealing his sturdy body. A halo appeared behind his head. He had been the strongest disciple of the Chan monastery of Devanaga several decades ago. He had undergone the second heavenly tribulation in his 40s, possessing supreme talent that allowed him to look down on his peers. He was renowned throughout the entire Green Province. He was even believed to be the next abbot of the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Only when little and came to the Chan monastery of Devanaga did he lose out. During the several decades that Li Qingshan had spent in the Mist Province, he had not slacked off for a single day. His cultivation advanced further and further, and with the great support of a large sect like the Chan monastery of Devanaga, the third heavenly tribulation was definitely not out of reach. He had an even greater chance of breaking through compared to the various head monks. If it were not for his inner demons, he might have already entered secluded cultivation and prepared to undergo the tribulation. The soaring Locust King did not kill him just to torture him. Instead, it was very difficult to kill him if he did not personally take action. He could end up losing his demon commander clone with the slightest carelessness. If his true body took action, the 4 guardian kings of the Chan monastery of Devanaga would not be joking around. It was not worth the risk at all, which was why they constantly provoked him verbally, making him suffer from chi deviation. To him, this could be a form of training. Outside the demon suppression hall, the dauntless monk was delighted. The entire Chan monastery of Devanaga had high hopes for One Lamp. Even after the appearance of One Will, the dauntless monk still believed he was more suited to succeed as abbot. The fact that he could overcome his inner demons and pull himself together was truly worthy of celebration. He immediately found Li Qingshan to be much more pleasing to the eye. "Senior brother, this disciple of mine has made the right choice, right?" The unraging monk smiled. The dauntless monk nodded. He could not help but admit to this. He thought to himself, Li Qingshan is a secular disciple and doesn't have much loyalty to the monastery, but he still shows some respect to junior brother Unraging. They can be regarded as part of the same lineage. The chances of One Lamp undergoing the third heavenly tribulation are extremely high, while who knows what level One Will's cultivation has reached, but she shouldn't be far from the third heavenly tribulation. The Chan monastery of Devanaga has a successor. Then he said, since he refuses to become a monk, the Chan monastery of Devanaga can't force him either. However, since he's your disciple, feel free to ask if you need any support. Don't make people feel like the Chan monastery of Devanaga is stingy. Yes, senior brother abbot. The unraging monk smiled. He knew the dauntless monk had basically recognized Li Qingshan, and the dauntless monk's recognition was the monastery's recognition. They would provide Li Qingshan with enough support to mend their icy relationship. Even if they could not reach the level of loyalty, they would be on good terms at the very least. This recognition was not only because of Li Qingshan's assistance to the One Lamp monk. That was just an expression of their attitude. What mattered was his actual strength. Even to large sects, great cultivators were extremely rare. They could increase the sect's strength qualitatively. Unless they had no other choice, no one would push them away. This instead proved Li Qingshan's wild theory. The difference between the strong and the weak was indeed worlds apart. "Let's see how they cultivate," the dauntless monk said in anticipation. All right. The unraging monk still had another worry. "Qingshan, oh Qingshan, you better not actually become a demon king, or I won't be able to cover for you." Li Qingshan stared at the 9th demon suppression statue, only to discover that it was different from the previous 8. Not only was it several times larger, but the material it was made of was very different too, making it seem even more solemn. It sat there with its legs crossed, its expression peaceful and tranquil like an old monk in meditation. He observed it for a while, but he did not immediately obtain the legacy of the demon suppression statuary. As a result, he extended his hand and pressed down on the statue, powering the demon heart and sinking his mind into his sea of consciousness. With a boom, the demon suppression statue sprung to life, standing in his sea of consciousness like a mountain and beginning to dance about. The first form, initial repentance of the demon heart. The second form, unshakable demonic nature. The movements were extremely connected, increasing in level until it achieved enlightenment in the end, stopping all of its movements and sitting in the sea of consciousness with its legs crossed. Its messy hair fell down, and it converted to the Buddha, becoming a monk. Li Qingshan suddenly understood. As it turned out, the 9th demon suppression statue did not just contain the 9th layer of the demon suppression statuary, but also the general principles of the demon suppression statuary. Only here did it demonstrate many of its wonders. He was elated. If he could master it, his cultivation as a human would definitely undergo a qualitative change. He began to comprehend it with all his attention, but gradually he began to frown. "Qingshan, if you've taken a wrong path, there's still a chance for you to correct it here," the unraging monk thought to himself. Originally, there was only a single demon suppression statue in the demon suppression hall. The 8 statues on top were all replicas of this statue. Their objective was to analyze this overly profound cultivation method and make it easier for people to understand, but in the end, it was all for the sake of the final demon suppression statue. It was like rivers returning to the sea. However, Li Qingshan had not taken a wrong path at all. Instead, he had been going in the opposite direction from the very beginning, allowing him to cultivate to his current level. It was basically a miracle. When he tried to comprehend the 9th layer of the demon suppression statuary, he discovered this contradiction had already become so great that it could not be reconciled. Let alone mastering the entire cultivation method, even the 9th layer was difficult to practice. When his demon chi circulated to this extent, it immediately dispersed. He tried to sit in the lotus position like the demon suppression statue, but he discovered it was very awkward. He had never thought about becoming a monk in the first place, yet this demon folk who had realized his error ended up becoming a monk in the end. The increase in cultivation could be overcome through brute force, but the practice of cultivation methods still required comprehension at the end of the day. Don't tell me I really have to switch cultivation methods. Chapter 1026. Changing cultivation methods was not that simple. Since he had already condensed the Demon King's heart, he had to continue down this path, or all his previous efforts would go to waste. However, this was not the demon domain, so where was he supposed to find a demonic cultivation method that was on par with the demon suppression statuary? And even if he did find one, it would probably clash greatly with the demon suppression statuary, causing his cultivation to regress. For a moment, Li Qingshan could not think of a way. He could only stare at the demon suppression statuary and continue his attempts at comprehension. However, he failed time and time again, and he made no progress at all. On the other hand, the one-lamp monk behind him grew brighter and brighter after breaking through the demonic barrier, dispelling the heavy demonic qi. Time passed bit by bit. Li Qingshan had lost count of how many times he had failed, but not only did he not give up, his tenacity was roused instead, and he continued to try. This was not blind persistence. There had always been a question in his heart. If I was wrong from the very beginning, then why was I able to successfully cultivate the first 8 levels of the demon suppression statuary without any signs of chi deviation? This doesn't make sense at all. He had never heard of a cultivation method that could be successfully cultivated to such a high level despite having a completely wrong understanding of it. He had a vague feeling that the demon suppression statuary was not as simple as it seemed. However, after several thousand attempts, he finally confirmed one thing. The 9th layer of the demon suppression statuary was completely at odds with the first 8 layers he had cultivated. There was no possibility of connecting them. Even the general principles were completely different. However, these attempts were not in vain. During the process of cultivation, he discovered something strange. Whenever he did not cultivate according to the method of inheritance of the 9th demon suppression statuary, he would instead find it much smoother. He said in thought, cultivating Taoist cultivation methods will condense a golden core or nascent soul. Cultivating a Buddhist cultivation technique would condense a Saraira golden body. What kind of cultivation method will condense a demonic heart? The answer was already obvious. The demon suppression statuary was a demonic cultivation method in the first place, not a Buddhist cultivation method. This was all thanks to the revelation from Little N. The path of white bone and great beauty was not created out of thin air. Instead, the white bone bodhisattva had turned from Buddhism to the demonic based on her lifetime of Buddhist cultivation. No matter how evil she seemed, what she condensed was still a white bone relic. The demon suppression statuary, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. It was about entering Buddhism from the devil. It was very likely that there was another version, or even the original version, which was why he was able to successfully cultivate the first 8 layers. Only at the final step of entering Buddhism did problems arise. Therefore, there was no need for him to seek out other demonic arts. He only needed to deduce the original version of the demon suppression statuary. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and severed his connection with the demon suppression statue. He completely tossed aside the demon suppression statuary, be it the general principles or the 9 levels of the cultivation technique. Demonize. The billowing demonic aura transformed into demonic armor that covered Li Qingshan's body. Its appearance was different from before, but he didn't care. When he fought against the Dragon King of the Sea, this demonic armor was as fragile as paper. It was easily shattered by the sword Qi. It could only be used to bully opponents like Si Qing. Demon suppression. Swish. Black chains whistled out, wrapping around him firmly. They collided with the demonic armor and kicked up countless sparks. Boom! The demon suppression tower descended from above, suppressing him beneath it. It was even larger than ever before. This was the state of perfection he had attained after practicing the demon suppression statuary so far. His eyes sank, like a deep, rippleless ocean. He circulated the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression at full strength, deriving the 8 layers of the cultivation method he had comprehended layer by layer. Although the 5th layer of the spirit turtle was still nowhere close to the Banyan Tree King's super-biological computer, its ability to deduce and calculate was extremely great. If it were a regular formation, it could deduce its operating method in the blink of an eye. The demon suppression statuary was not necessarily more complicated than a formation, but most importantly, there were far too many unknowns. Many of the blanks could not be filled in through deduction. He needed to add in a lot of imagination. If the demon suppression statuary really did possess an original version, what kind of cultivation method would it be? In the history of the Chan monastery of Devanaga, there were only 2 people who had truly comprehended the demon suppression statuary through their own abilities. One was the unraging monk, while the other was himself. Duoj had used external power, so let's put that aside for now. Why couldn't others comprehend it? Was it because their ability to comprehend was lacking? That was impossible. Who knew how many geniuses had appeared in the Chan monastery of Devanaga over the past several millennia? Let alone the distant ones. Just the one lamp monk behind him was a supreme genius. In terms of talent and ability to comprehend, he was in no way inferior to the unraging monks. And Li Qingshan had never felt his ability to comprehend was particularly great either. Was it because his demonic nature was insufficient? That was possible, but with so many generations of disciples in the monastery, it was impossible for all of them to be benevolent. There were definitely degenerates among them, and while the unraging monk had a demonic nature, he still stood on the side of justice after all. He had never fallen into the demonic path. There must be something in common between us that fulfills the conditions for practicing the demon suppression statuary. Master has a fiery temperament, abhorring evil. He was once known as the Monk of Fury, purging demons and defending the righteous path throughout the Green Province. He was renowned for not fearing authority, an old, nationalistic man. And, while I also like good people and hate bad people, I'm nowhere close to abhorring evil, nor am I a nationalistic man. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. Then there was only one answer: they were aggressive and bloodthirsty. Their objectives were completely different, but before they comprehended the demon suppression statuary, they had both gone on a killing spree. They both possessed a very heavy killing nature. This explained why he and the unraging monk were the only ones who had comprehended the demon suppression statuary over all these years. Killing was the greatest taboo of Buddhism. For the past several millennia, the Green Province had been in a state of peace. With the monastery's status in the Green Province, their disciples basically had no need to fight with others. All they could do was practice on demon folk. The unraging monk who had killed countless people was truly a marvel. It was very likely that the original version of the demon suppression statuary was a demonic art that pursued destruction and slaughter to the extreme. Only after the demonfolk's great reversal did the chains of demon suppression and the demon suppression tower appear, methods that only trapped and did not kill. Thinking up to there, the spirit turtle's calculations immediately became much smoother, filling in large swathes of blank space. The demon suppression statuary gradually began to show an unprecedented form. Li Qingshan was filled with eagerness. This was exactly the cultivation method he needed. After who knew how long, he said slowly, "There's no need to restrain me." The chains of demon suppression shattered and vanished. "There's no need to suppress me." The demon suppression tower immediately collapsed. "There's no need to protect me." The demonic armor was removed from his body. The three turned into demon chi, surging and gathering behind Li Qingshan. The demon chi on the entire 9th floor of the demon suppression hall surged over, forming something that seemed to be stirring. Li Qingshan suddenly copied the 9th demon suppression statue, sitting down with his legs crossed and eyes lowered like an old monk in meditation. Outside the demon suppression hall, the dauntless monk asked, "Has he mastered it?" The unraging monk struggled to answer, as Li Qingshan's state seemed to be slightly different from when he had mastered the demon suppression statuary. Sure enough, Li Qingshan changed his posture very soon, assuming the posture of the 8th demon suppression statue, then the 7th, the 6th, until he reached the 1st demon suppression statue, the demon heart's initial repentance. His face was filled with regret, exactly the same as the demon suppression statue. Suddenly, the corner of his lips curled into a smile. He had finally followed the path of the demon folk and found the origin, seeing the true form of this cultivation method. His smile gradually widened, becoming vicious. Murderousness began to surge. The unraging monk could no longer smile anymore. How was this still the demon suppression statuary? "Demonify!" Li Qingshan bellowed out, and the surging demon chi behind him began to condense, turning into a colossal demon over 300 meters tall. Its appearance was rather similar to Li Qingshan's, except it was filled with ruthlessness. The demonic inscriptions on its body wove together, and bone spikes protruded. On its back was a pair of war banners. On the banners were two bold and vicious words written in blood: "Fighting Demon." This set of cultivation method was called Devil Fighting Catalog. Two visions overlapped in Li Qingshan's eyes. One was his own vision, while the other was the colossal war demon behind him. He raised his right arm, and the war demon raised its right arm as well, throwing a punch at the space before him. Boom! The surging demon chi was swept away, revealing the entire 9th floor of the demon suppression hall. Qingshan, the one-lamp monk, sensed a terrifying pressure and roused from his cultivation. He opened his eyes. Li Qingshan smiled at him. His smile could still be considered gentle and friendly, but the war demon's smile could be described as vicious. The one-lamp monk took a step back. Chapter 1027. Fighting Demons. The unraging monk was alarmed. As the first successor of the demon suppression statuary, he had once investigated the origins of this powerful demon folk through the convenience of watching over the demon suppression hall. His understanding of the demon domain was much deeper than regular people. Demon folk seemed to come in all shapes and sizes, especially after demonifying, where there was nothing they could not imagine or see, but they were actually divided into many races of various sizes. The powerful demon folk who created the demon suppression statuary came from the renowned war demons of the demon domain. The war demons were loyal to Qiangliang, one of the 12 demon gods. They were known for their ferocity and belligerence, and their state of demonification was completely different from regular demon folk. They would condense a huge war demon behind them, which was rather similar to the golden avatar of Buddhism. It was just like Li Qingshan's current state. This is also the demon suppression statuary? The dauntless monk said in doubt. He had never practiced the demon suppression statuary, but he could tell that Li Qingshan was basically even more vicious than regular demon kings. He did not possess even the slightest bit of Buddhist nature anymore. There was only a naked demonic nature. This? The unraging monk hesitated slightly. He never thought that not only would Li Qingshan fail to practice the demon suppression statuary, but he would instead take the opposite path and become the war demon king. Monks don't lie. This has to do with the entire monastery. The dauntless monk said sternly. The mighty Chan monastery of Devanaga had actually produced a disciple of a demon king. That was a colossal joke. No, the unraging monk said. All the unraging monk could do was say that. He also knew that the original version of the demon suppression statuary might exist, but he was unable to understand how Li Qingshan had derived the demon suppression statuary to such a level in such a short amount of time. This did not make any sense at all. He's your disciple. Don't forget what you said just now. Buddhism is vast, but it can't contain a demon king. The dauntless monk said. I'll go down. The unraging monk strode into the demon suppression hall. Don't alarm him. Bring back a lamp first. Booms rang out constantly. Li Qingshan experimented with his new power as he continued to derive the demon war statuary. Saber. Li Qingshan waved his hand, and the war demon also waved his arm. Demonic chi surged and condensed into a giant blade, which slashed down. Ding. With a thunderous sound, a deep crack appeared on the ground, and a gale swept in all directions. Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, it was much more powerful than the chains of demon suppression, and he had only managed to derive 60 or 70% of the demon war statuary. If he could derive it all, it would definitely be even more powerful. If he faced an opponent like Si Qing again, even if he did not use the 9 transformations of demons and gods, he would still be able to win easily. This was not only because the Fighting Devil statuary placed more emphasis on destructive power than the demon suppression statuary, but also because the Fighting Devil statuary was more suited to his temperament. The murderous aura of the tiger demon was enough to bring out the might of this cultivation method by 120%, or even 15%. However, it was inconvenient to test it in the demon suppression hall. You became the demon king? The one-lamp monk's robes ruffled in the fierce wind. He stuttered slightly. He had no idea which he should be more surprised about. He had undergone the 3rd heavenly tribulation, or he had become a demon folk. Cultivation is all about being fast, or how are you supposed to kill the soaring locust king? Li Qingshan smiled. His voice was still rather calm and composed, but the war demon behind him roared out, filled with killing intent and fighting spirit as if it was expressing his inner thoughts. The two voices overlapped, forming a wondrous rhythm. Kill the soaring locust king. The one-lamp monk was taken aback. He had overcome his inner demons and was close to breaking through the 3rd heavenly tribulation, but he really was not bold enough to say he could kill the soaring locust king. The difference between them was just far too great. Was everything I said earlier for nothing? Why do you want to become stronger? Isn't it just to kill powerful enemies and take revenge? Why don't you even have the determination to do that? Li Qingshan waved his hand, and the war demon pointed its huge blade at the one-lamp monk. The one-lamp monk was taken aback. He had yet to adapt to Li Qingshan's rules of survival, but his hatred towards the soaring Locust King was as great as the mountains. He said loudly, "I do." Don't listen to his nonsense. Becoming stronger is for the sake of understanding one's own nature and purging demons and protecting the righteous path, not for revenge. The unraging monk suddenly appeared and patted the one-lamp monk's shoulder with his huge, fan-like hand. "Unraging senior uncle." The one-lamp monk bowed in a hurry. "I'm very relieved that you've overcome your inner demons, but don't be blinded by hatred, or it'll be another inner demon." The unraging monk said earnestly, "I'll take your teachings to heart." The one-lamp monk reflected on himself in a hurry. Now this was what he was used to saying. What difference does it make? Understanding one's own nature is hatred. Purging demons and protecting the righteous path is slaughter. Li Qingshan said in disagreement, while the war demon roared out even louder. "Putting the cart before the horse." The unraging monk rebuked furiously, immediately drowning out the war demon's roars. Li Qingshan was slightly taken aback. He had known the unraging monk for so long, but he had never seen him so furious before. He really did give off a shocking aura. As it seemed, no matter how casual this eminent monk was normally, he still had his principles. However, he never liked arguing with others. With a clang, the war demon rested the huge blade on his shoulder. "You're not in the right, so what are you yelling for?" "Li Qingshan, I told you to practice the demon suppression statuary, so what did you practice?" The unraging monk pointed at the war demon. Now this was truly putting the cart before the horse. "This is my understanding of the demon suppression statuary. Are there any problems? Immediately reverse the cultivation method and return to the right path," the unraging monk ordered. "I'm warning you. I might call you master, but I hate it when people tell me what to do the most." Li Qingshan said in displeasure. "How dare you?" "It's all because I've been too lenient with you in the past, which is why you've fallen onto the demonic path. I'll teach you a lesson today, you damned disciple." The unraging monk tossed the one-lamp monk onto the 8th floor with a wave of his hand before taking a step forward. A huge guardian king appeared behind him, scarlet red like it was forged from copper. It stood over 600 meters tall, with a crown on its head and ribbons wrapped around its body. Its chest and belly were protruding, giving it a dignified appearance. Although it was condensed from demon chi, there was a faint halo of Buddhist light behind its head. The unraging monk was once known as the Monk of Fury, but now he was known as the unraging Guardian King. The Guardian King wielded the crescent spade and also took a step forward. With a great rumble, the entire demon suppression hall seemed to shake. "Damned fatty, you've lost your mind." Li Qingshan had guessed that switching to the demon war statuary would make the dauntless monk frown. This old bastard had always been making trouble for him, but he never thought the unraging monk's reaction would be so intense. The unraging monk bellowed, the Guardian King glares furiously, subduing the 4 demons. The Guardian King glared furiously, shining with Buddhist light. Li Qingshan immediately felt restrained and pressured. He knew the unraging monk's demon suppression statuary had already reached a level of perfection, which was extremely effective against demon folk. However, he refused to show any weakness. The war demon swung his blade. "Teach me a lesson? I'm afraid you don't have that ability." Chapter 1028. One lamp came to the demon suppression hall and put his palms together. "Greetings, Abbot. You've come out. Very good." The dauntless monk said nothing more, focusing on the scene before him. The one-lamp monk followed the dauntless monk's gaze and saw that in the demon suppression hall, Li Qingshan and the unraging monk had already drawn their swords. "Abbot, junior brother Qingshan, he's fallen into the demonic path," said the dauntless monk. "But I feel that junior martial brother Qingshan's mind is clear, and he doesn't seem to be possessed by the devil." Perhaps he's just cultivating in the wrong direction, Monk-eating said. I know he has done you a favor, but don't confuse righteousness with personal feelings. The demon folk have destroyed the Dharma and slandered the Buddha. They are the great enemies of our Buddhist school. There will never be any room for reconciliation, the dauntless monk said sternly. But he hasn't done anything bad. One lamp argued. Deceiving your master and destroying your ancestor isn't committing evil? The dauntless monk pointed at the image. Monk-eating was speechless. No matter what sect he was in, it was a great sin to point a sword at his master, no matter how many reasons he had. He sighed to himself. Qingshan, you really shouldn't have done this. If Great Master Buru has misunderstood you, you should kneel down and beg for forgiveness. You should explain things clearly to him. Wouldn't there be even less room for reconciliation in this way? Damn disciple, how dare you attack your master? The unraging monk called out. It's you who wants to fight me. Li Qingshan found the situation to be extremely troublesome. He did not want to clash with the unraging monk at all, but it was impossible for him to admit his mistakes and admit defeat. Good, you've really grown up. Let me test your ability. The unraging King Kong suddenly took a step forward and raised the crescent spade high with both hands. It spun and stirred up a gale as it smashed down on the war demon's head. Ding! The sound of metal clashing could be heard, and chi waves surged. The fighting demon brandished his blade to block the crescent spade. Although his body was as big as a mountain, in front of the unraging Vajra, he was like a child facing an adult. Hey, you're serious? Li Qingshan could only see a few dozen feet. The unraging monk's robes fluttered in the wind. His demeanor was calm, as if he had fused all of his killing intent and demonic nature into this unraging Vajra. The huge shovel that was like a dam slowly pressed down, rubbing against the blade fiercely and emitting an ear-piercing roar. The surging devil chi on the war demon's body continued to dissipate, and the bone spurs also began to shrink. His body also showed faint signs of shrinking. Every single move and strike from the unraging monk contained the power to suppress demons. It was extremely effective against all demon folk. In particular, it was even more effective against the war demon. The unraging monk said, If you beg for mercy right now and admit to your wrongdoings, I can still give you the opportunity to repent. If you insist on remaining stubborn, all I can do is cripple your entire cultivation. What crime have I committed? Li Qingshan was infuriated too. He never thought the unraging monk would actually be so vicious. His demon heart shone brightly, and all the bone spikes on the war demon protruded. The huge blade blocked the crescent spade. He let the soaring locust king escape, said the unraging monk. Bullshit. Li Qingshan was completely infuriated. He swung his hands forcefully, and the huge blade knocked aside the crescent portable spade, swinging towards the unraging monk. Damn disciple, the more powerful your demonic nature is, the more you'll be restrained. In consideration of the fact that we were once master and disciple, I won't take your life. I'll let you reflect on your mistakes in the soaring locust king's place. As the unraging monk said that, the crescent portable spade spun around in the unraging Vajra's hand, easily knocking away the huge blade and sending the war demon flying. Li Qingshan's heart sank. The soaring locust king had been trapped in the demon suppression hall for several thousand years, so he did not believe he could break free so easily. The unraging monk was completely unreasonable right now, actually making him suffer in the soaring locust king's place. He could not help but laugh out of anger. I'll stay here? What great honor you have there. Say no more. The unraging Vajra chased after him relentlessly, swinging the crescent portable spade into a violent storm. Boldest, Li Qingshan swung his blade again, and the war demon banner fluttered in the wind. Boom, boom, boom. The weapons clashed countless times, like claps of thunder. Li Qingshan retreated step by step. Even when he pushed his blade style to the limit, he could only barely hold on. He was forced to the edge of the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall, unable to retreat any further. The huge blade in the war demon's hand collapsed loudly. Bang! The crescent portable spade pressed against the war demon's throat, pressing him against the walls. My demon war statuary still hasn't finished deriving it, so the restraint I face is far too great. Coupled with the huge difference in my cultivation, it's impossible for me to emerge victorious if I don't use the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine. And once he used his demon techniques, there would be no room for him to turn back. Even if he could defeat the unraging monk, all he had to do was retreat from the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall, and he would still be trapped here. As a result, if he wanted to break free from here, the only way was to kill the unraging monk, the watchman of the demon suppression hall, and then kill his way out of the monastery. Demon suppression. The unraging monk waved his hand, and the chains of demon suppression shot out. Li Qingshan did not dodge either, staring straight at the unraging monk and allowing the chains to wrap around him. The demon chi was suppressed, and the war demon let out a reluctant roar before collapsing and dispersing. The unraging monk dispersed the unraging guardian king and arrived before Li Qingshan. Damn disciple, do you know your crimes? Li Qingshan just shut his eyes. Then you better reflect on your actions. Demon suppression. The unraging monk snorted coldly. With a wave of his sleeve, he turned around, and the demon suppression tower fell loudly. The one-lamp monk sighed heavily. The dauntless monk was rather surprised. He never expected the unraging monk to be so merciless. He seemed like he had turned back into the furious monk from the past who did not even have a single grain of sand in his eyes. He must have been infuriated by Li Qingshan's rudeness. Suddenly, the chains of demon suppression shattered. Holding up the demon suppression tower with one hand, Li Qingshan suddenly snapped open his eyes. Killing intent surged, lunging towards the unraging monk like a vicious tiger. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out as hard as he could. You've gone too far. At such a close distance, and the unraging monk was completely defenseless, Li Qingshan could basically already imagine the scene of his big, fat head exploding. Junior brother. Even the dauntless monk was taken aback by such a startling turn of events, but how was he supposed to save him in time? The demon suppression hall operated with its own set of laws. Even if the unraging monk wanted to go to the 9th floor, he would have to make his way down floor by floor. Boom! The demon suppression hall shook violently. Even Great Buddha Mountain could sense it. The dust settled, and Li Qingshan knelt on one knee. His right fist was stabbed into the ground, forming a huge, deep pit around it. A demon suppression statue was tattooed on his broad, robust back, but only at a closer glance did one discover that it was a violent battle demon. The unraging monk stood on the edge of the pit. The left side of his face had reddened slightly. Just now, in the nick of time, Li Qingshan had dodged his fist, brushing past his face and striking the ground. You can go, Li Qingshan said without even looking back. Your demon suppression hall can't keep me locked up. The unraging monk touched his cheek and suddenly began laughing. Damned brat, so this is your true strength, isn't it? What terrifying strength. If you were struck by it, probably no one would be able to endure it. No one understood the toughness of the demon suppression hall better than him. The power of the punch was enough to collapse a mountain outside. Chapter 1029. After saying that, the unraging monk did not wait for the dauntless monk's reply. He said to Li Qingshan, "Let's go." Master? Li Qingshan suddenly had no idea what to say. What, do you really want to stay here and sit in prison? The unraging monk smiled. How dare you fool me? Li Qingshan said furiously. It was no wonder that the unraging monk had suddenly become a different person. Basically every single word he said was purposefully provoking him. Damned brat, so what if I fooled you? Who knows how many times you've cursed bald donkey, or even now. The unraging monk had returned to his carefree manner, which left Li Qingshan with no idea whether he should be happy or furious. The master and disciple returned to the demon suppression hall. The dauntless monk and the one-lamp monk had already vanished. The unraging monk plopped down on the stone tablet outside the hall again and took out some alcohol and meat to eat. It must have been that old bastard who made you come down. Li Qingshan shared half of the alcohol and meat with him. He could vaguely guess that if it were not for the dauntless monk's interference, the unraging monk definitely would not have clashed with him. Oh. The unraging monk gulped down a few mouthfuls of alcohol. You're also afraid that my personality will change drastically after switching to the demon war statuary, which is why you're purposefully testing me. Li Qingshan asked. Judging a person through their cultivation method was not actually simple or crude in the cultivation community. Cultivation methods had an extremely deep influence on cultivators, especially demonic cultivators and demon folk who practiced demonic arts. Not even 1 in 10,000 were good people. Even if it was the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, if it were not for the suppression of the spirit turtle and the mediation of the phoenix, he would probably be a different person. Even if he could retain some of his original self, he would definitely be even more violent, stubborn, and do whatever he wanted. And, after switching the demon suppression statuary to the demon war statuary, his personality had indeed been influenced slightly. He became a little irritable and easily angered, and his aggressiveness became stronger too. Otherwise, he would never have been angered by the unraging monk so easily. Not really. I trust you, but not everyone understands you like I do. You can't blame the dauntless abbot either. I can take responsibility for you, but he has to take responsibility for the entire monastery. The unraging monk had witnessed Li Qingshan's battle with Si Qing, especially when he used a single hand to block the black dragon's frontal charge, so he knew he was hiding a great powers. As a result, he descended into the demon suppression hall and purposefully infuriated Li Qingshan verbally, even threatening him by suppressing him. In the end, he purposefully left behind a fatal opening. It was not to test whether he had become demonic or not, but to prove to the dauntless monk that he was not the monastery's enemy. If he wanted to convince others that the tiger was not dangerous, the only way was to personally step into the tiger's cage. This was the unraging monk's way of taking responsibility for his disciple. When he used his life as a guarantee, even the dauntless monk had nothing to say. Even if he refused to accept a demon king like Li Qingshan, all he could do was allow the unraging monk to deal with him. This was also the understanding and trust between them. Thank you for your trust. Li Qingshan glanced at the plump monk before him deeply and felt rather touched. He raised the jar of alcohol high into the air. That punch of yours sure was vicious. Don't tell me you actually wanted to kill your master back then. When the unraging monk recalled Li Qingshan's punch, he really did feel some lingering fear. Although he had guessed that Li Qingshan's true strength was very powerful, only when he had personally experienced it did he realize just how powerful he was. Your level of mockery is basically 80% as good as mine, so it's nothing strange if you want to kill your master. However, if I really wanted to kill you, you definitely wouldn't be able to make it out of the 9th floor of the demon suppression hall. Li Qingshan smiled as he drank. He was a decisive person. He would either give up or go all the way. If he really wanted to kill the unraging monk, then that punch would have been much more than that. In reality, he did not use a single strand of demon chi, nor did he use any of his innate abilities. The unraging monk was taken aback by that as well. He studied Li Qingshan. Just how many other tricks are you hiding? I've always been this unfathomable. Li Qingshan laughed aloud. I suddenly feel a little regretful. I keep feeling like you'll only cause trouble for me. Perhaps I really should seal you up in the demon suppression hall. The unraging monk shook his head. Then I'll give you another chance. Li Qingshan smiled and turned around, entering the demon suppression hall again. He arrived on the 9th floor and sat down before the demon suppression statue. He wanted to use it as a foundation to completely derive the demon war statuary. The unraging monk let out a long sigh. He really had no idea whether having a disciple like him was a blessing or a curse. Time passed quickly, and another few months passed. It's only 80 or 90% after all. Li Qingshan stood up. After all, he did not have the original version. The spirit turtle's derivation was already close to the limit. Even if he continued wasting time, the effects would be minimal. However, it was not like he had come out completely empty-handed. As a matter of fact, it could even be regarded as a great surprise. Battle demon, appear. Li Qingshan bellowed out, and demon chi surged out violently, condensing into a battle demon behind him. It was much larger and more substantial than before. Battle demon possession. The battle demon suddenly leaned forwards, lunging towards Li Qingshan. Strands of demon chi curled and pulled him, completely merging with his body and dyeing his skin dark red. Black demonic patterns spread and wove together, filled with violence. A pair of war banners behind him was written with the two words, Battle Demon, in an unrestrained and ostentatious manner. His expression became ferocious and ruthless, but his figure did not change much. Only his muscles became more solid and powerful, and he could feel his power surging violently. In terms of human cultivation alone, his strength had reached a new peak at this moment. Originally, he could not maintain this state for too long. Not only did his demon chi deplete very quickly, but it placed an extremely great burden on his body too. However, with Li Qingshan's physique, he could endure this burden with composure. Most importantly, the demon fighting statuary and the 9 transformations of demons and gods had truly fused together. It wasn't like when he cultivated the demon suppression statuary in the past, where his demonic armor would be shattered in just a few moves, and it wouldn't be of much use. If he used it at the same time as the tiger demon's fury, his battle prowess would instantly rise to a new level. That would be the peak of his overall strength. Although he could not derive the perfect version of the demon war statuary, he decided to use the remaining 10 to 20% freely. Perhaps it would be even stronger than the original version. Battle Demon Blade. Li Qingshan waved his hand, and demon chi condensed into a long blade. Its shape was somewhat similar to Tiger's Fang, but it was much larger. The broad and thick blade was also curved, appearing even more ferocious. Although this battle demon blade was condensed from demon chi, its quality was somewhat similar to the demon suppression tower. Its power was definitely not inferior to that of an ordinary demonic treasure. It could also change its size according to its master's will, and there was no need to worry about it being damaged. However, Li Qingshan shook his head. Condensing this battle demon blade also required demon chi and mental energy. It was not worth it under the state of battle demon possession. What he needed now was definitely not just a blade of this level. It had to be stronger than Tiger's Fang. Chapter 1030. Night had just fallen, and a melodious evening bell drifted over from Great Buddha Mountain. The unraging monk was no longer as carefree as he usually was. He sat on the stone tablet with his plump body and closed his eyes, silently chanting scriptures. Choose for yourself. The unraging monk did not even open his eyes. With a flick of his finger, a Sumeru ring spun and landed in Li Qingshan's palm. The Sumeru ring was extraordinary. It was enveloped in a layer of heavy demon chi, grayish-brown in color. Li Qingshan opened it and took a look, and his eyes immediately lit up. Who knew how many demonic artifacts were placed inside, including everything from blades, spears, swords, and halberds? There were 5 or 6 demonic treasures alone, which made him overjoyed. The unraging monk had watched over the demon suppression hall for many years. Although demon folk did not like to rely on external objects like human cultivators, he had still accumulated many demonic artifacts, and this was exactly what Li Qingshan needed right now. He smiled. There's no need to choose. What? Not a single one is satisfactory? The unraging monk opened his eyes slightly. Thank you, master. I'll take them all. Kid, you've come to rob me, haven't you? The unraging monk shot him a glance and said furiously. Master, you sure are stingy. Forget it, I won't take it for free. I'll exchange it with you, all right? Li Qingshan took out all of the spoils he had obtained in the south. Although he had sacrificed all of the weapons, there were still quite a sizable amount of pills, shaman goo, cultivation methods, and so on. He even took out the blood oath scroll. For a moment, he lit up the surroundings. How many people did you kill in the south? The unraging monk glanced past them. These items clearly did not come from a single cultivator, which left him amazed. I'm just purging demons and protecting the righteous path. If it's not enough, please forgive me. Li Qingshan smiled. Forget it. These demonic artifacts are useless with me anyway, but you need to be clear. Why do you have so many demonic artifacts? The unraging monk asked. In terms of value, just the demonic artifacts completely surpassed what Li Qingshan had taken out, but as Orthodox Buddhism, disciples of the Chan monastery of Devanaga could not refine demonic artifacts. If they were contaminated with their demonic nature, the losses outweighed the gains. Refining them again would be rather troublesome too. The world had been at peace for several millennia, so the monastery did not lack Buddhist artifacts or treasures. Although he could sell it to demonic cultivators, the unraging monk would never do that. I have my own uses for it, Li Qingshan said. If you don't explain yourself clearly, you can't touch any of these demonic artifacts. The unraging monk grabbed Li Qingshan's wrist. He was afraid that Li Qingshan had taken so many demonic artifacts and gone off to create some evil organization. Don't you trust me? Li Qingshan asked. I trust you. You have to give me some face. After all, I am still your master. As the unraging monk said that, he even felt like his life as a master was miserable. Normally, when the master asked his disciple, the disciple would have to tell him everything he knew without holding anything back, unlike the unraging monk who had to rely on his disciple to give him face. Have you heard of the Asura sacrificial altar? Li Qingshan asked. Asura sacrificial altar. Even a great general king didn't have it. Where did you come from? The unraging monk asked in surprise. This was even rarer than the Asura field. Someone from the Asura path gave it to me. Li Qingshan shrugged. Why? Probably because he felt I had a future, so he wanted to form a good relationship with me. He even invited me to the Asura path, but I turned him down, Li Qingshan said. Do you want to ascend to the Asura path in the future? The unraging monk asked. Perhaps, Li Qingshan said. He could not help but admit that the land of endless battle was still very attractive to him. The Asura path isn't an evil path, but it still pales in comparison to the heavenly Taoist and human path. The unraging monk shook his head. He could not help but sigh. Just how old is this kid? He can already discuss ascension with me. It's still better than the demon domain at the very least. If you go to the demon domain, I'll break your legs. The unraging monk said. What he worried about the most was that Li Qingshan would actually become a demon folk after practicing the demon war statuary. Master, I won't hide it from you. I definitely have to go to the demon domain. However, it's not to mess around with demon folk. After his battle with the unraging monk, Li Qingshan was grateful for his trust, which made him even more reluctant to fall out with him. As a result, he revealed a few things, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Even if his identity as the North Moon was exposed in the future, he did not want to destroy their relationship as master and disciple. What? The unraging monk asked in doubt. There's an enemy there. I have to kill him. Li Qingshan played it down. I'd advise you to stop dreaming. The demon domain is extremely vast, and it's extremely chaotic. Let alone whether you can find your enemy or even enter the demon domain. He might have already been killed by other demon folk. The unraging monk still thought Li Qingshan had fallen out with a certain demon king in the south. Qingqi Mountain should be very easy to find. I don't think Qiongqi will be killed just like that, Li Qingshan said. The unraging monk was taken aback. He waved his plump hand. Go and offer up the sacrifice. I can't be bothered with your crazy talk. He had obviously heard of Qiongqi before. He was one of the 12 demon gods of the demon domain, a true god. What right did Li Qingshan have to fall out with him? He could only treat it as a joke. Alright, there's this too. Li Qingshan took out another spiritual stone and flicked it. When the unraging monk saw that it was a spiritual stone, he did not pay too much attention to it. Only when the spiritual stone landed in his hand did he become surprised. The spiritual stone gave off a faint, green mist. The spiritual chi surged and was pure, basically on par with the saraira of a monk king. It even possessed a sliver of the profound laws of the world. The banyan tree king gave it to me. Master, you've been nice to me, so don't say I'm not a good person. Li Qingshan waved his hand and stepped into the Asura field. The unraging monk looked at the spiritual stone in his hand and guessed that it originated from the Mist Province cauldron. He shook his head with a smile, both relieved and helpless. In the past, when he took him in as a disciple, he originally wanted to guide him in a direction, but he did not give him the opportunity at all, striding forward blindly. He had already reached the same level as him a long time ago, or perhaps before long, he would completely surpass him. Qingshan, oh Qingshan, just where do you want to go? Under the blood-red clouds, with Yin Qing in the lead, under the gazes of the Azura, Li Qingshan set foot on the Azura altar of armaments once again. He felt rather eager inside. His current strength was far greater than when he obtained Tiger's Fang, and he had prepared even more offerings. What kind of blade would he obtain this time? As a result, he no longer suppressed or hid his aura. His scarlet hair danced about like fire as demon chi surged into the air. The Azura altar of armaments beneath his feet trembled. So powerful! He's become even stronger. Yin Qing licked her lips in some disbelief. He seemed to have surpassed the limits of time. Blade! Li Qingshan called out. The shadow of a blade leaped out from the mottled stone platform. Li Qingshan placed the demonic treasures on the Azura altar of armaments one after another. When he placed the fourth demonic treasure, the Azura altar of armaments suddenly lit up with a blood-red light, giving off the sound of weapons clashing, as if a weapon was about to leap out. Tiger Demon's Fury! Li Qingshan clenched his fists and immediately used the Tiger Demon's mystical ability. Killing intent surged, evil energy shot into the sky, and a blood-red whirlpool spun. His skin turned scarlet, and the black tiger stripes interweaved to form the character king. He roared in his heart, "Still not enough, I need a stronger weapon." The blood-red light dimmed again, acknowledging Li Qingshan's strength and craving for more offerings. When Li Qingshan placed all 6 demonic treasures on the altar, the blood-red light lit up again, surging even more violently than before. Battle Demon Possession. Li Qingshan roared, and his demonic heart shone brightly. Demonic energy surged up to 100 zhang, and the demonic statue behind him flew out. Just as it was about to transform into the battle demon, it flowed back into his body. Like the last straw that broke the camel's back, Li Qingshan staggered and half knelt on the ground. His body trembled violently as if he couldn't bear it anymore. He clenched his teeth and smiled. Very good. The blood-red light dimmed again until Li Qingshan placed the hundreds of demonic treasures on the Azura altar of armaments. Suddenly, a beam of blood-red light soared into the sky, and thousands of weapons clashed. Yin Qing, who was watching from afar, frowned and thought, "It's too forceful. It's hard to control a weapon obtained like this. The stronger the weapon, the better." There was no powerful Azura divine weapon that didn't devour its master. Countless Azuras had become the servants of the divine weapon. Bang! Li Qingshan slapped down with his palm. "Come out!" The blood-red light condensed into a thin thread before breaking and dissipating. A saber was stabbed into the Azura altar of armaments. It was huge and beautiful, arrogant and unbridled, like a blooming demonic flower. The flower branch was the handle, and the petals were the edges. It spat out a wide blade, and the blade was also covered in flower-like patterns. It didn't look like a weapon at all, but a work of art. One could smell the fragrance of flowers lingering around. Li Qingshan revealed a look of joy. He took a deep breath and withdrew the magical power and the battle demon. Countless wounds opened up on his body, and blood splattered everywhere. This was the first time he had used 2 explosive moves at the same time, and his body actually couldn't bear it. But then again it made sense. The Tiger Demon's fury stimulated his battle prowess to the extreme. Adding the battle demon's possession was like adding snow to snow. Fortunately, he didn't use it in battle. He had a terrifying strength, but it was difficult to use it. He still had to slowly get used to it. But I've finally succeeded. Li Qingshan stretched out his hand, and just as he was about to test the power of the saber, a hand grabbed the hilt before him. With a clang, the saber was gently pulled out. Li Qingshan's pupils shrank. Only then did he see the full appearance of the saber. The blade was even larger than he had imagined. It was almost as tall as him, and it was curved into an arrogant arc. In an instant, The saber light shone brightly like a flower in full bloom. It was 100 times brighter than the sun. A wild aura assaulted his face, but what followed was not the fragrance of flowers, but a sharp killing intent. Li Qingshan looked against the light, and he could vaguely see the figure of a woman raising the saber high. He was bewildered. Who is she? How could she approach me without a sound? Could it be that Yin Qing teleported over to snatch the saber? Be careful, it's the Frenzy Flower Saber Soul. Yin Qing shouted from afar. Frenzy Flower Saber Soul. Li Qingshan frowned. He heard a voice coming from the center of the saber light. Little guy, you're not worthy to be my master. How dare you use such a senseless trick to deceive the armory and disturb my sweet dreams? The saber descended like a thunderbolt, slashing toward Li Qingshan. Chapter 1031. A large green hand stopped the lightning. The blade paused and stopped above Li Qingshan's head. A few strands of red hair fell. Frenzied Blade let out a cry of surprise. Only now did Li Qingshan see Frenzied Blade's appearance. She was no different from a normal female Shura, but her face was exceptionally bright and flamboyant. Her long red hair was wavy, and her body was taller than him. She wore 100-flower armor and exuded a murderous aura. This was the first time he had seen a true weapon spirit. The flying dragon sword, Bloodjaw blade, and other weapons had a certain amount of spirituality, but they had no intelligence. Wildflower Sword's soul looked down at him from above, half praising and half mocking. Your bones are quite hard, don't waste my time, quickly die. The edge of the blade suddenly pressed down, chopping the tiger bone, making a sound of metal colliding. Li Qingshan felt a piercing pain from his hand. Blood flowed down his arm, turning into scorching flames. He was both surprised and overjoyed. He was surprised that his ox demon forge's its hide had actually been destroyed, but he was overjoyed that the blade really was a rare divine weapon. You're just a weapon, and you dare speak so arrogantly. Black cracks spread between Li Qingshan's fingers. The blade's aura shattered, and the blade hummed. This kind of power? Frenzied Blade was shocked. He wanted to pull out his blade, but Li Qingshan's hands held it firmly. Break! Li Qingshan shouted, but before he could spit out the whirlwind, Frenzied Blade seemed to have predicted it and kicked him in the face. Li Qingshan's head tilted slightly, and the whirlwind swept past Frenzied Blade, creating a gully thousands of feet long. So you're not an Azura? Frenzied Blade said. Why do you say that? Li Qingshan said. An Azura king's attack can't be seen through so easily. Frenzied Blade showed a trace of disdain. He stepped on Li Qingshan's face and pulled out his blade. Let go. The ground beneath the Azura sacrificial altar suddenly collapsed, and cracks appeared on its surface. Li Qingshan spread his phoenix wings and soared into the sky. He asked, Does Azura King have as much power as I do? The muscles on his arms were knotted as he gripped the blade tightly. The long blade trembled incessantly, but he was unable to break free. He could already tell that the battle experience and skills of the Berserk Flower Saber Soul were far above his own. If he were to allow the Berserk Flower Saber Soul to display his saber techniques, he would probably not be easy to deal with. Relying on his combat instincts, he made the best choice. Never let go. It's just brute force. Wild flowers bloom. The frenzied flower saber soul snorted coldly, and a flower-like saber edge suddenly bloomed. The patterns on the saber body flowed, and waves of saber light bloomed, engulfing Li Qingshan. This is called overwhelming strength, tremors of the ox demon. Li Qingshan gritted his teeth, but he did not care about the saber light that fell on his body. Instead, he poured all of his vibration power into the saber. Damn it! The frenzied flower saber soul's figure trembled, and it was faintly discernible, appearing extremely unstable. The power of tremors of the ox demon could shatter the void, and it could also pass through the saber body to shake the saber soul. And when her saber light landed on Li Qingshan's body, it could not break through his ox demon forges its hide. She was filled with hatred. How can this brat's skin be so thick? As a saber soul, she could not leave the saber, and all of her superb skills had to be displayed with the saber. Now that her main body was trapped by Li Qingshan, she was like a tiger that had its teeth pulled out. Although she was abnormally fierce, she could not display the killing power that she should have. She was greatly regretful. She should not have been so careless in the beginning, allowing him to grab the saber edge. It's fine if you can't block the saber edge, but you want to hurt me with a mere saber light. Li Qingshan closed his eyes tightly, and his skin turned green. He activated Ox Demon Forge's its hide to the extreme, and it was as if he was strong. Let him be strong. You coward, let go and fight with me. Don't think you can make me acknowledge you like this. The frenzied flower saber soul was very sullen. She had never met such a fellow before. Shut up, bitch. I'm already in an undefeatable position. Only an idiot would let go. Li Qingshan said. In the sky, the man and the saber were entangled as they scolded each other. Sometimes they rose, and sometimes they fell, causing the Azuras below to stare in shock. Suddenly, like a meteor streaking across the sky, it crashed head first into the mountain, causing an earth-shattering boom. The mountain collapsed, creating a large crater. Inside the crater, Li Qingshan gripped the saber hilt tightly and stabbed it into the ground. The frenzied flower saber's soul beat and scolded him, but he could only endure it silently. His expression was as tenacious as a stubborn bull. Activating the 4-ox demon theurgy, the green leather resisted all damage. Endless power surged from the ground, and a strong gravitational force was released from his palm, making it impossible for the frenzied flower saber soul to break free. Waves of vibrating power continuously surged into the saber, slowly shattering the frenzied flower saber soul's resistance. He simply threw everything else aside and activated Ox Demon Transformation with all his might. Li Qingshan suddenly had a mysterious feeling that he had never felt before. He was no longer a human, but a bull. It was not because of his cultivation method, but because he was a calf from the moment he was born. Hee, didn't I grow up in a cowshed? Li Qingshan mocked himself inside. He suppressed the frenzied flower saber soul instinctively and submerged himself in this mysterious feeling. His expression gradually became rather dazed, and his bearing began to change. It became heavier and deeper, while the ruthlessness of the tiger demon, the peace of the spirit turtle, and the elegance of the phoenix gradually receded. The bloodline of the ox demon circulated madly in his body, and the curved horns on his head extended even further. His green head stretched and enlarged, becoming a little like an ox's head. His tall body became even more muscular and powerful. His feet turned into a pair of huge hooves, and something seemed to appear behind his bottom. Looking back, it was actually an ox's tail. He could not describe what he was feeling, but he could not help but let out a moo. The moo was rather heavy, as if it originated from the depths of the earth, echoing through the mountains. He understood that the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine was currently undergoing a new transformation. As it turned out, apart from balance, he could also push a transformation to the limit. Using the various abilities of the ox demon was as easy as eating or drinking. In particular, the ox demon forges its hide and strength of the earth made the layer of green seem to seep into the depths of his skin. There was no need for him to purposefully use them at all. When the sharp streaks of light landed on it, they were unable to harm him at all. Every single movement of his was infused with the power of the earth god's will. Even if the other transformations were disregarded, his strength had become even greater. Clenching his fists tightly, his saber no longer had any room to struggle at all. Forget it, I'll admit you then. The frenzied flower saber's soul suddenly let go. Li Qingshan was augmented by the strength of the earth, but she was not. Her strength was almost completely depleted. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.